if they're going to make a business decision that is going to cause a large chunk of their viewership to die, that it seems to me totally bizarre. It seems to me like, completely counterintuitive. And that's why I'm scratching my head when I hear that, Fox hosts are causing people to be skeptical of the vaccine and causing many senior citizens not to take the vaccine. How does killing off their own people help them? I don't get it.
Well, they're going to modify and appeal more to racists and bring them in. Obviously, the old people are going to die anyway, so they have to have a business plan to modify in order to...
So you see this as Fox's bid to pick up the young, white, racist, male supremacist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi nationalist vote?
That sounds good. My wife and I, we were just coming back from picking up some groceries, and we said to each other, on Fox News, do they have one gay person, and we couldn't, not that we watch it, but we doubt if that person is there.
Well, they used to have Shepard Smith, and he's gone.
Right. So, I mean, the white racists, there's a lot of white people in this country, and if we just move towards them, it's a good plan. And to think that money, and not that Fox News is the only money, but other money, they really don't care. They're isolated from all this, and whether it's 500,000 that die or a million that die. The same rich people made money on the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnamese War. It's money is the root of all evil. I mean,
I get it. James, you made your point. You made it very well, and I appreciate that. I do want to get at least one and hopefully two more calls here before the end of the show. So thank you very much for the call. Michael in Princeton, Minnesota. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I can't see the Republican Party surviving. I mean, first of all, you got Donald Trump directing the money to him. You got the Trump effect, which they're shedding. I mean, as many as 10,000 in one county in Arizona, 250,000 over a period of a couple days. Then you got the Biden bill that got passed. Then you got the suppression going on in the red states. And the ads that I've seen against that are phenomenal. So I cannot see the Republican Party surviving, at least in the way that they are right now. I don't.
So here's the question then, Michael: do they go the way of the Whigs? I mean, do they literally get replaced by another party, or do they simply go, become a super minority party like they were from 1933 to basically the mid 1980s, and just don't hold power?
I'm expecting that there's going to be a split. I wouldn't be really surprised at all to see a third party.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. We'll see.
They're so divided among themselves.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Michael, thank you. Mary in Greenville, Michigan. Hey, Mary, what's up? Mary? I am not hearing Mary. Okay, there's no Mary. Thank you, Sean, for that confirmation. David in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hey, David, what's up?
Hi. I don't think we're going to have equilibrium until Black Lives Matter or some group like that becomes a political party. Green Party.
Well, what that'll do is split the Democratic Party.
Could do it. What's that?
But that would split the Democratic Party, just like the Green Party did, on a couple of occasions.
The People's Party in the 19th century merged in with the Democratic Party in the 19th century to give us William Jennings Bryan, and eventually led to FDR.
Yeah, I think you could build that case. Interesting. I think it is a movement right now. I mean, we have a spokesperson from the movement for Black Lives Matter earlier in the program.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Health. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
Today's book in our book club is The Hidden History of the War on Voting, Who Stole Your Vote and How to Get It Back, by this guy, Thom Hartmann. This is from chapter 1, or from the introduction, actually. In 2016, 6% of Americans who were eligible to vote nominated Donald Trump as the GOP's presidential candidate. It was 8% for Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side. Trump went on to be elected president by 26% of eligible voters. The modern American oligarchs have largely stayed in power using three simple elements: explicit and overt racism, massive disinformation campaigns, and voter suppression. No ideas, no push for better schools, hospitals, airports, roads, or bridges, or reform of our health, energy, or financial systems. No promise of more and better jobs. None of these staples of past presidential campaigns can be found in pretty much any Republican advertising today. Instead, the public Republican message is all about race, or the subset of race, religion. Muslim stands in for brown Arab in GOP speak, and immigration, aka brown people from south of our border, and socialism. Meanwhile, Republican secretaries of state across the nation are vigorously purging voters from the rolls. Over 17 million, more than 10% of America's active voters, in just the 2016-2018 period, according to NBC News. After the after the 5 Republican appointees on the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, 14 GOP-controlled states moved within a year, some within days, to restrict access to the vote, particularly for communities of color, students, and retired people. In North Carolina, for example, 158 polling places were permanently closed in the 40 counties with the most African-American voters just before the 2016 election, leading to a 16% decline in African-American early voting in that state. An MIT study found that nationwide, Hispanic voters wait 150% longer in line than white voters, and black voters can expect to wait 200% longer in line to vote. In Indiana, then Governor Mike Pence's new rigorous voter ID law caused an 11.5% drop in African-American voting. Students are suing for their right to vote, and retired people who no longer drive but care passionately about their Social Security and Medicare are being turned away at the polls by the hundreds of thousands because their driver's licenses have expired. The obvious failure of 40-plus years of Reaganomics and GOP policies to maintain a functional middle class in America has been a problem for the modern GOP. In 1974, for example, the GOP had outright control of only 7 states. The message, elect us and we'll help the rich people, just didn't generally resonate with American voters. It's the reason why, outside of the fluke elections of 46 and 52, Democrats controlled the House of Representatives outright for 3 generations, from 1933 to 1996, and controlled the Senate for most of that time. Desperate to win the presidency for the GOP in 1968, Richard Nixon went so far as to commit treason by torpedoing a peace deal with President Lyndon Johnson that President Lyndon Johnson had worked out with the North and South Vietnamese. According to Abul Hassan Bani Sadr, then president of Iran, Ronald Reagan did the same thing by cutting a deal with Iran whereby they would hold on to the U.S. embassy hostages until after the 1980 presidential election, torpedoing Jimmy Carter's chances of re-election. But in 2000, the GOP changed tactics. After Reagan was almost busted for his part in Iran-Contra, he testified that he had forgotten about details of the program more than 80 times. His growing Alzheimer's spared him an indictment. They realized that getting busted for treason wasn't worth the risk. They needed a plan B, and it was deliciously simple. If most voters don't like what you're selling, then just don't let them vote. Paul Weyrich promoted this idea back in 1980 when he was campaigning for Reagan after co-founding the Heritage Foundation. And indeed, many Republican luminaries, such as William Rehnquist, who went from serving the GOP by standing in polling places and intimidating Hispanic and Native American voters in the 1960s, to becoming Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, rose up through the ranks by participating in Republican-run voter intimidation schemes. Voter suppression became the foundational go-to tactic for the GOP in 2000. Although the GOP attacked Democratic presidential nominee Al Gore with smear and innuendo, ridiculing him for helping write the legislation that created the modern internet, for example, the main thing that got George W. Bush into the White House was voter suppression. His brother, Florida Governor Jeb Bush, and Bush's Secretary of State, Katherine Harris, threw somewhere between 20,000 and 90,000 African-American voters off the rolls. They were able to get the vote close enough that 5 Republican appointees to the Supreme Court functionally awarded Bush the presidency. The BBC covered this in 2001 in 2 major investigative reports that were seen all over the world, except on any American media. By 2016, the Republican Party had fine-tuned its voter suppression and intimidation systems to the point that they ran like well-oiled machines in nearly 30 states. Between the 2012 and 2016 presidential elections, for example, Ohio had purged more than 2 million voters from its rolls, the vast majority, more than 2 to 1, in heavily African-American and Hispanic counties.
Thom Hartmann Program.
What a great Wednesday. Louise just got her first shot, her vaccine. Stage 1 of 2. She got the Pfizer here in Portland. I'm on the list. They haven't called me yet, but or emailed me or whatever, however they do it. But hopeful. But anyway, we've got a lot coming to you in the program today. In about 15 minutes, I want to get into the American Taliban. They need to stop writing our laws and killing our women. Our women? Oh, there we go. We'll talk about that in 20 minutes, 15 minutes or thereabouts. In the second hour, I published a new op-ed today. And by the way, I've changed. We were publishing over at medium.com, but you know, after 4 or 5 free reads a month, you have to start paying $5 a month. So we're moving everything over to hartmanreport.com. And it's free. And, you know, you can just get the newsletter in the mail, or you just read it online if you want. And my rant today is about the British royal family, monarchy, how it's happening around the world. We'll get into that, too, in the second hour. In our third hour, Dr. Justin Frank, our old friend, the professor of psychiatry at George Washington University, is going to be here about what are the best ways people can deal with the destruction and the fear and the depression and anxiety that COVID brings along. But to start out, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just on the floor of the House of Representatives, succeeded in blocking immediate passage. It was supposed to happen before we went on the air, of the COVID relief bill that passed the Senate a little while ago, a couple days ago. And, you know, she did this, she's requiring the entire House to vote on whether or not to adjourn, which is a stupid parliamentary procedure. But basically she said, you know, this bill is terrible. She said, quote, it does everything to help illegals. It pays reparations. It's disgusting. We're already $28 trillion in debt. Japan and China own our debt. Japan and China own America because they own our national debt. And here the Democrats go, and they're shoving us in more debt. We are enslaved like people with chains around our wrists and ankles, says Marjorie Taylor Greene. Right. Over at the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, there's an interesting op-ed about this COVID relief brimming with wasteful spending. And just by coincidence, the vice president for policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, Patrick Hedger, is on the line with us. Prior to this, he was a research fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute's Center for Technology and Innovation, and also served as a director of policy at FreedomWorks, the wonderful people who brought us the Tea Party. ProtectingTaxpayers.org is the website. Patrick's Twitter handle is Pat Hedger, Hedger 18, Pat Hedger 18, although he is well over 18 years old. Hey, Patrick, how are you?
Oh, had to take that low one last dig, didn't you, Tom? How you doing?
About your age?
Yeah,
oh no,
that's all right.
You're a young guy. I mean, I'm the old man here. I'm creaky back in my day. Anyhow, Patrick, give me your take on this COVID relief bill. Do you agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene that we American people, and presumably I'm assuming because she specifically said, this helps out black farmers, so I assume she's talking about white people. We are in chains.
Oh gosh, I don't want to be anywhere near what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying.
God bless you, my friend.
It's unfortunate to be on the right of center, trying to make arguments where I do care about the plight of the people in this country that could use a hand up and could use a hand out. And then, we Tom, you and I disagree on a lot of things, but I trust that you have good in your heart. And I just don't know where MTG or Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming on a lot of issues. So to put her aside, which I think a lot of folks need to do, I'm just concerned about this bill in terms of a lot of it is not focused. I mean, the vast majority of it is not actually focused on direct COVID relief, right? I can make a case for the government to be an insurer of last resort, especially in a case like the COVID-19, right? I mean, if Godzilla came ashore and tore apart the West Coast, I would say the federal government should get involved and help people out. And the COVID-19 has been basically a microscopic Godzilla on our economy. But I worry that some estimates, I believe it was the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, said that only about 5% of this $1.9 trillion bill, which is not a small amount of money, it's the GDP of Canada, this $1.9 trillion bill, only 5% of it is directed towards specific COVID-19 relief. And that means a lot of the rest of it is sort of a Christmas tree of political priorities.
So that's your principal argument against it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to have a debate about the other things that are in the bill if we could argue about those as
well. No, I'm happy to talk about that. Sure. First of all, the OECD, and I don't know if you caught this. This was in the Financial Times day before yesterday, and then, or maybe it was yesterday, and this morning the United Press International published it. You're familiar with the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's basically the group of the 34 richest nations in the world. The poorest is Costa Rica. The richest is us. And they came out with a study, it's called an interim report, actually. And they suggested that originally in December, 3 months ago, they predicted that worldwide GDP would grow in 2021 by 4.2%. They've revised that upward to 5.6%. And the reason why, they said, and this is a quote, projected U.S. economic growth indicates a 3% revision compared to the December outlook due to President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And then they add the large-scale relief package will increase upswings in both the U.S. and international economies. The point of, okay, we're increasing the national debt here, but and I know in the press release you had sent me earlier, it quoted our national debt at being 126% of GDP, which is interesting because that's the exact number we were at after World War II. And what did Dwight Eisenhower do to get us out of that 126% debt, ratio to GDP? He borrowed more money and built the interstate highway system and built schools and hospitals all across America. He created the infrastructure necessary for business to prosper. We have been living in austerity for 40 years, this Reaganomics. And so, if this bill, helps people with COVID and puts America back together, I don't get what's wrong with that.
Well, so there's a lot of provisions that I wouldn't argue that exactly put America back together. You've got some pet projects that create moral hazard, right? But the majority of my point is that these are things that ought to be discussed individually and not entirely tied to COVID-19, because a lot of Americans are focused on how do we recover from COVID-19, which again, like I said.
But you realize you can't do that. Forgive the interruption, Patrick, but we're down to 2 minutes here.
Sure.
But you realize you can't do that with Republicans threatening to filibuster everything in the Senate. I mean, this is the one chance Democrats are going to have.
Yeah, well, and this is going to get through the Senate with, without any Republican support. Already has.
It already has.
Again, yeah, and I'm very critical of the way that Republicans spent during the Trump years leading up to this. It's unfortunate that we're spending like this in a crisis when we should have been putting away a nest egg during the good times.
Isn't that when we should be spending? In a crisis?
Yeah,
shouldn't we set aside a nest egg during good times, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the Republicans were completely irresponsible, lost the mantle of fiscal responsibility over the last few years. But that doesn't mean that we need to beget more ridiculous spending. I think there's room for targeted relief, targeted stimulus, and I would phrase it more as a compensation to the businesses that have been forced to be closed by the public health measures. But, hundreds of millions of dollars to bail out pensions, hundreds of billions of dollars to build a new subway system. I mean, these things, this Christmas tree of pork barrel spending is not the way to get the economy going again. It robs capital from small businesses.
Okay, I'll leave you with the last word. Patrick Hedger, VP of Policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, protectingtaxpayers.org is the website. You can tweet Patrick at Pat Hedger, Hedger 18. And Patrick, thank you for dropping by. It's always nice having a civil conversation with you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Likewise, Tom.
Thank you. We'll be right back. It's 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll give you a little more detail on this legislation and on the conservative argument against it, not necessarily the one Patrick was making, but there are others right after this. So what I'm going to get into in just a minute is that down in Texas, actually, I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold that until we get to the principal argument that is being made right now against this bill is that it's 126% of GDP. And, in other words, our debt is huge. Our debt is absolutely overwhelming. And for that, I would refer you to the U.S. Treasury that keeps track of, who we owe money to, how much we owe, what our national debt is. And right now, out of the roughly $28 trillion debt, almost half of that is held by our government itself. In other words, the money that we owe is money we owe ourselves. There's about $3 trillion in the Social Security Trust Fund. There's $1.5 trillion in state and local government pension funds. There's $100 billion in private pension funds. There's $250 million in insurance companies' funds, and $150 billion in individual savings. But then other investments, basically of that type, government-sponsored enterprises, government-backed brokers and dealers, government-backed banks. That's $1.79 trillion. So, again, quoting, if you add the debt held by Social Security and all the retirement and pension funds, almost half of the U.S. Treasury debt is held in trust for your retirement. So what happens if the debt goes away? I mean, if the debt goes away, where do you put your money? I mean, this is one of the reasons why conservatives, not speaking to Patrick here, but this is one of the reasons why people like Pete Peterson with his Pete Peterson Institute, he was an investment banker, he made billions of dollars on Wall Street, and then he started this huge crusade to end the national debt. Well, why would a Wall Street banker want to end the national debt? The answer is really simple. They don't want, like you and me, to be putting our savings in treasury bonds. They want us to put our savings in CDs with their banks on Wall Street. I mean, this is not rocket science, right? Keep in mind,
as modern monetary theory points out, government debt is private savings. Now, given about half of government debt, a little less than half of government debt, is actually government savings. It's like I said, the Social Security Trust Fund. It's a savings account. Would you rather have that invested in treasuries, or would you rather have it invested in Citibank, so that or whichever bank it is that Jamie Dimon is, so that he can make another $1 billion in salary, by skimming a little bit off the top? Well, obviously Pete Peterson has his opinions on that. But I mean, what do you do with this? Where do you go with this? I think it's fairly clear that we have to have a national debt. The national debt has grown in large part because of tax cuts. You had the Reagan tax cut. He tripled the national debt. It was $800 billion when he came into office. It was $1.6 trillion when he left. He tripled the national debt. Excuse me, it was $2.4 trillion when he left. And George Herbert Walker Bush added to that with his little war. George W. Bush added another almost $2 trillion to the national debt through tax cut, and $3 trillion to the national debt through 2 unnecessary wars, and he lied to us about. And then Donald Trump added another $3 trillion to the national debt with more tax cuts and absurd military spending. So, there it is. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Astonishing news out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that has to do with the lifespan of Americans. Since World War II, the average lifespan of American men and women have continuously increased, all the way up to 78.8 years in 2019. Continuous increase. Things were getting better, more and more people were getting health care, we were making medical technology advances, there was a rather dramatic decline in smoking between the 1990s and the 2010s. All kinds of things were working together. And then came Donald Trump's response to COVID-19. Causing America, with 4% of the world's population, to have 20% of the world's deaths. The result of that has been extraordinary. For the first time since World War II, American life expectancy has declined. It's all over in a new video for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com. So anyway, just to recap real quickly, our national debt, about half of our national debt right now is held by the government and pension funds. The Social Security Trust Fund is almost $3 trillion of the national debt, for example. So if you pull out the government part of the debt, we're not even at 100% of GDP, but even at that, as I pointed out with Patrick, Dwight Eisenhower came into office and we were really at 126% of GDP as our national debt. And what did he do? He built the national highway system. It created such an explosion of economic activity across America that with a top 90% income tax bracket and a 51% top corporate tax bracket, the tax revenue from all that increased economic activity paid down the national debt in the 8 years, much of it in the 8 years of the Eisenhower administration. And then Kennedy maintained those levels, those tax levels, as did Richard Nixon, as did Lyndon Johnson, as did Jimmy Carter, as did Jerry Ford. I realize I'm not in order here, but you just go through it. So anyway, I see this as Republican hysteria. They are all hysterical about the national debt when it's time to spend money on people, but not so much when it's time to spend money on tax breaks for billionaires. Okay, the other point I wanted to make is about the American Taliban. Remember when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, and his goal was to ban abortion altogether, to make it completely illegal. And he was championing a law in Indiana, and frankly, I don't recall if it got made into law and got put on hold by a court action or if it was only on the edge of being made into law. But in any case, he was championing this law that he wanted to put into effect that essentially said that a miscarriage might be an abortion. Right? There's all these stories of women who try to do self-abortions, or they fall down a flight of stairs intentionally in order to cause an abortion. And so because a miscarriage even might be an abortion, anytime a woman is more than a week late on her menstrual period, she has to notify the local police department so they can keep an eye on her. And as a result of this, and if you're not, if you're a youngin', you may not remember this. This was literally 20 years ago. Well, not entirely 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. But there was this phenomena when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana called Periods for Pence, where women all over Indiana were tweeting or emailing Mike Pence, telling him when their periods began, and, oh, my period just came back, so I'm not pregnant, not to worry, I'm good for another month. Well, it's getting real in Texas. Brian Slayton is a Texas state representative, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has said he wants at least 2 anti-abortion bills before the Texas legislature this year. One of them just got dropped yesterday. This legislation by Brian Slayton, State Representative Brian Slayton, would abolish and criminalize abortions and explicitly say that getting an abortion or performing an abortion is murder and punishable by the death penalty in Texas. Now, I remember years ago I was at CPAC, I was at the RNC when it was in New York. I think it was 2008. And I had one of these Republican members of Congress on, and he was like, abortion is murder. And I said, well, if it's murder, what should the penalty be for women who get abortions? Do you want, we execute people for murder in America. Do you want them hung? Do you want them shot? Do you want it to be the gas chamber? And he said, well, that's up to the states. And it was one of those whoa moments. Well, that's what they're proposing in Texas. He said, it's time Republicans make it clear that we think abortion actually is murder. In 2019, State Representative Jeff Leach of Plano refused to consider a similar piece of legislation by Representative Tony Tinderholt. These are all Republicans. But he was the head of the committee that it had to go through, and he said it's not going to pass the committee. He got death threats and had to have security. The Republican, who wasn't opposed to the legislation, he just said, I don't think we can get this out of committee. This bill by Slayton so far is supported by more than 40 lawmakers, about half of the Republicans in the House of Representatives. I'm reading this piece from the Texas Tribune, texastribune.org. Slayton said, all my bill does is say that an unborn child is the same as a born child and should be treated the same way by the same laws. It would also require people to give evidence to testify about offenses involving abortions, which presumably could also involve miscarriages, particularly if you could prove they're intentional, and immediately offers immunity. So if you are the spouse or the friend of a woman who has had a miscarriage that the local police department thinks might be an abortion, you can be dragged before a grand jury and forced to testify under oath against your will and put in prison if you refuse to about anything you know about whether or not that woman threw herself down a flight of stairs, or drank too much alcohol, or took drugs that might have caused that miscarriage. In my opinion, it's time for the American Taliban, these religious fundamentalists, these religious crazies, to just get the hell out of our political life and get the hell out of women's uteruses. What say you?
Listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
He adds, by the way, they're hoping that passing this law will get this issue before the U.S. Supreme Court so that Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh can weigh in. Oh, boy, oh, boy. It is Grow Free Speech TV Week. And if we can add a couple of 300 new viewers, Andrew in San Diego is going to toss in $5,000, which kind of matches whatever donation you are giving. In fact, I got an email from him. You may have too if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list, you should call now, 877-378-8669. And at the very least, say, hey, sign me up for the mailing list for Free Speech TV. It's free. There's no charge. You don't get spammed. They don't sell your list. There's no ads. Very straightforward stuff. I got this email yesterday. Hi, Andrew from San Diego here. And of course, this went out to all the supporters of Free Speech TV. He says, I have some big news to share with you. Over the past 4 years, we built a stronger progressive movement than ever before, which is so true. And he says, now we don't have a moment to waste. You know, there are people all across America right now, as you read this, who are sick and can't get to the doctor. And folks walking down the street, driving, or taking their children to the park who aren't safe in their own communities for no other reason than their skin color. It's critical we leverage our power to push a bold agenda for healthcare, racial equality, climate protection, and so much more right now, writes Andrew. We can do this by growing our base of Free Speech TV viewers and donors. And then he talks about independent watchdogs like Amy Goodman and me and Sonali and Randy Rhodes and David Packman and Stephanie, that we're all doing our job. And he says, here's the big news. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, I'm inviting you to join our community of change makers this week. He said, if you make your very first donation to Free Speech TV before Friday, you'll get something special in the mail. And if 300 people make their first donation by Friday, I'll invest an extra $5,000 in our viewer-powered network. Are you up for the challenge? 877-378-8669. Thank you, Andrew. Well said, and it is so important. This is my hobby horse, right? My favorite rant. And it's not just getting people who are existing viewers to call now and make a contribution if they've never done it before, which please do so. If you've never contributed to Free Speech TV before, if you've never become, kind of officially part of our family, please do so. Free Speech TV needs your help, even small amount. In fact, particularly small amounts, because Free Speech TV is primarily driven by lots and lots of small donations. But also, if we can get more people watching Free Speech TV, that's a larger, base of people who are potential donors. And we can get more done, or we can cut back on the time we do fundraising, or both. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help out this little engine that could, this extraordinary little television network. They're running with a staff of, I believe it's fewer than 20 people in Denver that keep this entire TV network together and running. You've got people there who are doing the work of 3 people. And it is just, it's such an honor to be associated with Free Speech TV. And the people that I work with, and the people, right across the board at Free Speech TV are just wonderful, wonderful people. And this is a network that is worth keeping on the air and is worth helping grow. So if you can make a commitment to yourself to try to get at least 1 new people watching this network sometime in the next month. Now, keep in mind, getting 1 new person addicted to Free Speech TV or habituated is probably going to mean you're going to have to do outreach to 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 or 20 people. And that's a little bit of work, but it doesn't cost you a penny. And speaking of pennies, of course, if you can also make a contribution, and in particular a monthly contribution, even a very small one, that is so useful. It's so valuable. With a $20 gift, you have your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, which is the wildflowers, the seed pack, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and Free Speech TV sunglasses. With or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class, is the subtitle, or words to that effect. With a $240 gift, you can participate in one of our Zoom meet and greets. They're private. That's just us. And whatever you want to talk about, we can cover it. Or you can get 2 books autographed by the author, by me. That's The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, the bumper sticker, both mine and the Free Speech TV one, the seed pack, the wildflower seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and my oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come visit us here in Portland. And we'll start doing that in all probability this fall. Louise just got her vaccination, got in line. She got it this morning. So it's like, I'm still waiting, but it's really cool. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. Call now and become part of our family. We need you. Thank you so much. This week on The Science Revolution is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's here about his new book, Cosmic Queries, Star Talk's guide to who we are, how we got here, and where we're going. We'll be talking about what is life on Earth and in the universe? How did the universe get to be this way and not some other way? What is the universe made of? Plus, we get into how will the Earth end? Doomsday volcanoes, meteors, the death of the sun, and the collision of galaxies? So tune in for this in-depth conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson on The Science Revolution, wherever fine podcasts are available. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Louise in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Hey, Louise, what's on your mind today?
Well, I was listening to your discussion on, unwanted pregnancies and the control of about a baby and abortion and blah, blah, blah. You can prevent unwanted pregnancies through contraception. And the problem is the right is also against contraception. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that this bill defines a quote, unborn baby, end quote, as the moment the egg has been fertilized, not even when the egg has been implanted in the uterus. I mean, there's no medical definition like that at all. But basically what it would do is it could outlaw all forms of hormonal birth control, in other words, the pill. And it definitely outlaws the so-called day-after pill. Pardon the interruption,
or the
but
IUD.
just for clarification. Yeah.
Well,
yes.
And you're right, and the IUD.
That's correct, because that prevents implantation of an already fertilized egg, right?
Exactly. So that makes the problem even deeper as far as controlling women, making the definition go that far. I mean, maybe they could say as soon as some kid gets turned on by another kid, oops, there's your problem. Yeah. I mean, and what they did, I was teaching sex education, in the 80s, and I have my own business now. But anyhow, I was teaching, and at that point, they started to try to get kids out of your class because you were, and what we were teaching was risk behavior. What is a risk behavior? And you're teaching that the lowest risk is not having sex in the first place. So that's the lowest risk, and then you go from there. And what are you risking? And you're teaching that, and you're teaching, health and cancer and all this other stuff as well, and how to take care of yourself. And so, you weren't teaching anybody to do it. And then so they came up with their own sex education, which means is like if a girl starts having sex, then she stops. She's still a virgin. She's a secondary virgin, like Sarah Palin's daughter was. And, it's like craziness. And you're thinking, if people could get together and at least agree on contraception, then there could be a decrease in unwanted pregnancies, which gives women more freedom to pursue what they want in life.
Yeah,
and
the last time we saw these...
birth control's been tremendous for that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. The last time we saw this as at the level of culture war like this was really in the 90s. And I loved the phrase that Bill Clinton kept repeating was, he said, nobody's in favor, in quotes, of abortion. He said, but, this should be up to a woman and her physician. And if she wants a conversation with whoever her spiritual mentor may be and her partner. But this is really up to the woman themselves. And he said we should make abortion safe, legal, and rare. And the way you make it rare is with widespread availability of birth control and comprehensive sex ed, and both things that the right also opposes. I really think this is just all about controlling women. I don't see any other way to spin this or define it. I think that what we're looking at is misogyny or a patriarchy on display. Louise, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Very well said. Marcia in La Jolla, California. Hey, Marcia, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Well, I have been calling my fellow musicians about calling their congresspeople to support the Butch Lewis Emergency Pension Plan Relief Act of 2021, and that is included in the reconciliation bill. And I'm grateful for that. You know, when I retire, I want to have something to retire on.
Yeah. Reagan screwed with messed with our pension systems, made it legal for companies to start booking pensions as assets rather than liabilities, so that when companies got bankrupted, that money didn't get paid back. And so, most famously, when Eastern went bankrupt back in the day, this is one of the first major bankruptcies after Reagan changed the rules. All those people who had worked for Eastern Airlines for decades just completely lost their pensions entirely. And I think United did the same thing. I believe American did. I might be wrong. But lots and lots of companies have. You've got, it's just a mess as a result of basically the Reagan administration saying, yeah, workers' pensions, they're not so important. We're going to protect stockholders. And it's great that musicians are being protected by this. Marcia, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Dan in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Hey, Dan, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Great.
Good. Hey, so I just wanted to make a comment on the first caller that you had today from the conservative,
Patrick.
financial...
Patrick Hedger.
Yep. So that is the problem with conservative thinking in general. Like, I don't... They say that helping people is pork-barrel spending. Does he think that we're living in an obtuse, confined environment where we should just give... checks to everybody, or a little bit of money, and then help nobody else out? I mean, I pay $1,000 in childcare every month. There's more than just, helping people directly, and that's what's really been turning my stomach with this whole, debate over this coronavirus spending, is that they're saying 5% is going towards COVID relief. No, it's actually 85% is going towards COVID relief, just in different sectors. I used to work in restaurants. They got destroyed, so we're helping those guys out, and it's so obtuse, and it's enraging because they're making it seem like he said something about a subway. Okay, bro. Okay, all right, there's going to be a subway that's going to be built, but that's not what the bill's about. And it's enraging.
Yeah. No, I get it. And Dan, in Patrick's defense, there's really kind of two kinds of Republican conservatives right now. There are or maybe three. On the extreme, you've got the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Lauren Boeberts, whose latest anti-Pelosi ad ends with a shotgun blast. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then kind of in the middle of the Republican, you've got the people who are basically just white supremacists. And then you've got the old-fashioned conservatives, the conservatives, not even, they're to the right of Eisenhower, but kind of the Reagan conservatives, I guess. Reagan was willing to bring the racists along. But basically their position is that, yes, we should have a federal government, and it should do more than just run the police and the army. But it shouldn't do very much more. We should trust in the free market, in quotes, and the philanthropy of billionaires to basically cover most all of our social needs. And I think that Patrick is kind of in that category. And there is a philosophical history to that. I mean, that goes back to Sir Edmund Burke. I guess he's not a sir, actually, to Edmund Burke in the 1790s, when he was having these huge debates with Thomas Paine that provoked Paine to write his book, The Rights of Man. So, it's a legitimate, I think, perspective, and I think it's useful that we have those debates, and it's one of the reasons I'm grateful to Patrick for coming on the program. And I'm unwilling to put the real hardcore crazies on the program, even though there's a number of them who are more than willing to do it. But it's there are limits. But so let's not try to personalize this, but I think this is a good thing. I mean, the OECD is saying it's going to be good for the world to the tune of a whole hell of a lot more than $1.9 trillion. And it just seems like a good thing to me, and I'm really happy it's happening. Dan, thank you very much for the call. Mark in Las Vegas. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine.
All right. Well, great. My original point was about abortion, is that over half of women lose their fetuses by the 7th week naturally for various reasons, naturally. All right. And in most cases, they don't even know they were ever pregnant. All right. So if we're going to talk about at the moment that conception occurs, that anything that happens over that is considered suspect, well, then you're really going to have every single woman in this country on trial at some point, given that. You can't do that.
Well, I'm
It's
not
just
sure that
crazy.
these guys would be unhappy about that.
Well, yeah, but of course, what we need then is the Greek, out of the Greek stories, where the women just decide to stop having sex with men altogether and see how they like that.
Yeah. I mean, this bill literally,
it's so nutty.
This bill does not have an exception for rape or incest, even. Although, and like I said, it defines pregnancy at the moment of fertilization. And not even, and it's typically like 3 days after that the fertilized egg moves from the fallopian tube down into the uterus and implants itself. And a lot of the time it doesn't successfully implant, as you correctly point out. And then, the miscarriage rate is fairly high. I think it's about 20, 30%. Go ahead, Mark. Yes, you may.
Yeah.
You've got 15 seconds.
Thank you. Sorry. A couple other things. The Christian Taliban in this country only wants to read parts of their Bible. They're missing out on the other parts that talk about how children who disobey their parents should be killed by their parents, among other things. So if they want to go down that road, if they want to talk about the sanctity of life, then they should stop reading and abiding by their own Bible.
Right. Yes, there's some pretty brutal stuff in the Bible. I'm with you. Mark, thank you very much for the call. It's 45 minutes past the hour. Back with,
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls and the news of the day in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. Let's see here. Laverne in Portland. Hey, Laverne. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a brief update on something else that Pence did. When he was governor, he wanted to put a law in saying that women could not buy contraceptives unless they were married. And then the other thing was he was also saying that they could buy them if they could prove that they were getting married. They have a fiance or whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to add that to if he got in as president, that'd be the worst thing in the world. But anyway, thanks, Tom. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Laverne. Great to hear from you. Mick in Seattle. Hey, Mick, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. Glad to see you're still vertical in the world. I'm
step by step.
Step by step. My question is this: you mentioned at the top of the program that Louis, your significant other, was going to get a shot, and I'm going to get mine tomorrow. Oh, she
Congratulations,
did?
Mick.
Well,
yeah, she got the shot at 6 o'clock this morning here in Portland, or 7 o'clock this morning. She's back home now. Yep.
Okay, my question for calling you, Tom, is why it's so important to me that I may or may not get the shot, because I'll debate depending on your answer. Did she get anything from them to prove that she got the shot? In other words, I want to be able to go into the airlines and say, I want to go so-and-so place. Here's my card, which I believe you get a card that says you got it. Is that going to be universal? Will passports honor it? And I need to know this because if down the road we have to take the shot again, and if we don't have the card, we're going to have to prove that we did take the earlier shot. I also think down the road it's going to be symbolic of the Jewish star on our shirts.
You mean as in during Nazi Germany?
Yep.
You mean not having the vaccine or having had the vaccine?
If you haven't had the vaccine and don't have the card, what's to stop someone from saying, I did get the vaccine, when in fact they didn't?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Let's not mix the Nazis in with this. So here's my understanding of what happened, and I'm not an expert on this, but Louise just went through it, and I observed the process, and I'm in line. You register here, and this is just by the states that you've got this, and this CLEAR organization is trying to work out a deal right now for a vaccine passport like they're doing in Israel, and a couple of other countries are experimenting with this. So go ahead and get your shot, and in Washington I virtually guarantee you that the state is going to be keeping track of that, and you will get a card. Mick, thanks for the call. Hey, my new book is out, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Want to know more? The links are all over at thomhartmann.com. So David Perry over at medium.com put together a list of 38 reasons to investigate the Trump administration. Everything from the Russian influence over the 2016 election to the Trump family's collusion with Russia to Ivanka Trump's trademarks to federal spending at Trump properties to the civilians killed by Trump's drone strikes to the Trump administration's role in turning the United States into the global epicenter for the COVID-19. Hey, Calvin, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Where are men's responsibilities in taking care of these kids? If they're going to do that to a woman starting from the day she's pregnant, they need to make men pay child support from the day she's pregnant.
That's a good
them
plan.
Responsible for it, too. And another thing about the shots, in Alabama, we have on the back of our cars, I don't know about other states, where you can scan the card and it tells you everything. They can just do the same thing. You go in and take the shot, they scan your card and put in that you've been vaccinated, and there's code readers everywhere. You can do the same thing. You walk in a restaurant, they scan your driver's license. You're good to go.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is actually a good idea. I get the privacy concerns, but I think it could be done in a way that doesn't freak out privacy concerns. And I frankly, I would consider starting to fly again if the airlines were requiring proof of vaccination to get on an airplane. I'd consider, vacationing someplace or taking a cruise again. We do these for listeners from time to time. If everybody on the cruise ship was vaccinated, and restaurants, I would love for restaurants to be checking before you come in. And of course, you'd want to know that the entire staff there. So yeah, I'm with you, Kelvin. Kelvin, thank you. Great to hear from you. I appreciate the call. Gary in Detroit. Hey, Gary, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I was just commenting on actually potentially STEM, and this was an argument that was made by an author who wrote a book called Birth Strike. I don't remember what her name was, but fascinating concept that essentially what this is about is in part trying to make sure that there's cheap labor, that the ruling class, the oligarchs, want to make sure that women don't have access to contraception because then they will necessarily have children, and our fertility rate will be propped up by virtue of women not being able to opt out of having children because, frankly, in this country, we give no support to people who end up having children. So
excellent.
I thought that might be interesting to you.
Yeah, excellent point, Gary. And by the way, let's not forget, and I guarantee you every conservative who is behind this kind of legislation already knows this, but let's not forget that what kicked off the women's movement in the United States was not just some random moment in the history of the world where literally for the first time in thousands of years, women were demanding a place in the workplace. I mean, yes, 100 years before that, in the 1920s, women were demanding a vote. But I'm talking the modern women's movement. We want to be part of the workplace, and we want to have power, political, economic, and social power equal to men. That
happened in the mid-60s because in 1961, the hormonal birth control pill was legalized. And in 1965, the Supreme Court struck down the law in Connecticut that said that even a married couple could not have contraception in their own house. Literally all forms of contraception in Connecticut were illegal until 1965. The Supreme Court struck that down. And yeah, in the Griswold case, exactly. Yeah. And that then led to the women's movement that really got underway in 66, 67, 68 and was full blown and exploding by 71, 72. So these conservatives are looking at that history and saying, if we can take women back to no longer being able to control their reproductive cycles, to no longer having control over when they're going to get pregnant and when they're not, then we can go back to having the workplace entirely male, having men have all the political power, having men have all the economic power, we can accomplish all these wonderful things. And I really think that that's a large part of the goal behind the goal. So go ahead.
And if I may add to that, I would say that part of it is also, think about it, as someone who's been a trial lawyer for decades, it was always interesting that there was always tort reform designed to go after one of the strongest Democratic constituent groups, and women are one of the strongest Democratic constituent groups now. So it's a twofer if you basically cut into their ability to earn a living and make income that they might be able to contribute.
Yeah, tort reform going after personal injury lawyers and those kinds of things. Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Spot on. Gary, thank you. Ari in Eureka, California. Hey, Ari, just a little less than a minute. You got a quick point? Ari? Oh, no caller. Okay, I wasn't sure. Mike in Detroit. Hey, Mike, you got 30 seconds. What's up?
Well, there's not enough time to say what I got to do with you, Tom, about that spending bill in 30 seconds. Because I think you're confusing or intentionally misleading your audience when you say, okay, Eisenhower spent all that money. There's not enough money in this bill that goes to infrastructure. They're already working on an infrastructure bill to follow this one. That's supposed to be another $2 trillion. So why do you do that to your audience?
Well, that's a good point, Mike. You're right. This is not principally an infrastructure bill. This is a simply get people back on their feet bill. I'll take that as a valid criticism. Mike, thank you. We will continue. I want to talk about the royal family and royalty and American royalty and the American opinion of royalty and your thoughts on all that right after the break. This is the piece that I published over at HartmannReport.com.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
It is Grow Free Speech TV Week. And if we can add a couple of 300 new viewers, Andrew in San Diego is going to toss in $5,000, which kind of matches whatever donation you are giving. In fact, I got an email from him. You may have too if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list, you should call now, 877-378-8669. And at the very least, say, hey, sign me up for the mailing list for Free Speech TV. It's free. There's no charge. You don't get spammed. They don't sell your list. There's no ads. Very straightforward stuff. I got this email yesterday. Hi, Andrew from San Diego here. And, of course, this went out to all the supporters of Free Speech TV. He says, I have some big news to share with you. Over the past 4 years, we built a stronger progressive movement than ever before, which is so true. And he says, now we don't have a moment to waste. You know there are people all across America right now, as you read this, who are sick and can't get to the doctor. And folks walking down the street, driving, or taking their children to the park who aren't safe in their own communities for no other reason than their skin color. It's critical we leverage our power to push a bold agenda for healthcare, racial equality, climate protection, and so much more right now, writes Andrew. We can do this by growing our base of Free Speech TV viewers and donors. And then he talks about independent watchdogs like Amy Goodman and me and Sonali and Randy Rhodes and David Packman and Stephanie, that we're all doing our job. And he says, here's the big news. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, I'm inviting you to join our community of change makers this week. He said, if you make your very first donation to Free Speech TV before Friday, you'll get something special in the mail. And if 300 people make their first donation by Friday, I'll invest an extra $5,000 in our viewer-powered network. Are you up for the challenge? 877-378-8669. Thank you, Andrew. Well said, and it is so important. This is my hobby horse, right? My favorite rant. And it's not just getting people who are existing viewers to call now and make a contribution if they've never done it before, which please do so. If you've never contributed to Free Speech TV before, if you've never become, kind of officially part of our family, please do so. Free Speech TV needs your help, even small amount. In fact, particularly small amounts, because Free Speech TV is primarily driven by lots and lots of small donations. But also, if we can get more people watching Free Speech TV, that's a larger, base of people who are potential donors. And we can get more done, or we can cut back on the time we do fundraising, or both. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help out this little engine that could, this extraordinary little television network. They're running with a staff of, I believe it's fewer than 20 people in Denver that keep this entire TV network together and running. You've got people there who are doing the work of 3 people. And it is just, it's such an honor to be associated with Free Speech TV. And the people that I work with, and the people, right across the board at Free Speech TV are just wonderful, wonderful people. And this is a network that is worth keeping on the air and is worth helping grow. So if you can make a commitment to yourself to try to get at least 1 new people watching this network sometime in the next month. Now, keep in mind, getting 1 new person addicted to Free Speech TV, or habituated, is probably going to mean you're going to have to do outreach to 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 or 20 people. And that's a little bit of work, but it doesn't cost you a penny. And speaking of pennies, of course, if you can also make a contribution, and in particular a monthly contribution, even a very small one, that is so useful. It's so valuable. With a $20 gift, you have your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, which is the wildflowers, the seed pack, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and Free Speech TV sunglasses. With or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class, is the subtitle. or words to that effect. With a $240 gift, you can participate in one of our Zoom meet and greets. They're private. That's just us. We, you know, and whatever you want to talk about, we can cover it. Or you can get 2 books autographed by the author, by me. That's The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, the bumper sticker, both mine and the Free Speech TV one, the seed pack, the wildflower seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and my oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come visit us here in Portland. And we'll start doing that in all probability this fall. Louise just got her vaccination, got in line. She got it this morning. So it's like, I'm still waiting, but it's really cool. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. Call now and become part of our family. We need you. Thank you so much.
William Shearer.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. So it seems like Americans kind of across the board, now there is one exception to that, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but every race, every class, every political persuasion generally are recoiling in disgust that the British royal family would even have a conversation with Prince Harry about how dark the skin of his son might be because he was married to Meghan Markle. I mean, this interview with Oprah Winfrey is just mind-boggling. And I think that there are several actually larger issues here that are worthy of conversation. And so I just wanted to lay this out for you, my take and my thoughts on this, and get yours as well. And we can continue talking about, you know, is the relief bill too big, or, you know, should women register themselves with the local police department if they're a week late with their menstrual periods or with their periods. I should stop using that word, I'm sorry. But I think this thing with the British royal family has really awakened a lot of Americans. And I think that there's a reason why at this moment in time, and I'm not just talking about the growing awareness and awakeness of white Americans about the plight of black Americans, the contemporary plight, I mean, not as well as the historical plight of black Americans. And I think that that has to do with the Trumps, and I'll get to that in just a second. But, you know, basically we joined with, you know, we were kind of iffy about the United Kingdom from the Revolutionary War. Then we fought another war with them, and the War of 1812. So throughout the 1800s, the 19th century, our relationship with Great Britain was pretty much limited to trade. But then in World War I, we became allies with Great Britain in a giant world war. We repeated that again a generation later with World War II. And ever since then, there's been this American fascination with things British and things royal. There are books, there are magazines about the royal family here in America. TV shows about the royal family are big hits. The latest one is The Crown, I think it's called. And I suspect that one of the reasons why this is imploding has not just to do with Harry and Meghan, but has to do with our very recent 4-year experience at an attempt at monarchy in the United States. Donald Trump was the patriarch of a would-be royal family. He not only bragged about his great genes, which would, you know, is the essential quality for a genetically based royalty. He not only bragged about that, but he installed his utterly unqualified daughter and son-in-law in an actual government advisory position, put them in charge of peace in the Middle East and the COVID response, which was both of which were totally botched. And then he had his sons, principally Don Jr., in a sort of unofficial government advisory position and a very official campaign position, as if it was Prince Don Jr. and Princess Ivanka. And here's Donald Trump literally running ads on Facebook saying that he was going to be president in 2020 and in 2024 and in 2028 and in 2032. Remember that ad? Remember him talking in front of his rally? Maybe we'll just stop having elections. That's called royalty. And when he tried to overthrow our government on January 6th, well, it's an ongoing process, actually. I mean, ever since he denied the outcome of the election, he's been trying to overthrow our government, but January 6th was the high point. A nation that was birthed in defiance of royalty, so that Donald Trump could establish his very own line of royal succession. Remember, Don Jr. was talking about running for the Senate from North Carolina. Ivanka was planning on taking on Marco Rubio. Excuse me, Princess Ivanka, Prince Don Jr. And then there's the conservatives. You know, from the founding of our republic, conservatives have had this love affair with the idea of royalty. Before the revolution, the people who loved royalty in America were called loyalists or Tories. They never quite trusted mob rule, which is what they referred to democracy as being. And now they're piling on Meghan Markle. And whether that's because she's black, last night on CNN, Don Lemon just did just deconstructed Fox News' coverage of Meghan Markle. And clearly a lot of it is they're hating on her because she's black. How dare a black woman have the temerity to marry into the British royal family, which has this pure bloodline? Those weren't their words. That was the implication. But it also, I think, is a defense of British royalty. Here's the kind of stuff that we're seeing. The writing.com, RIGHTING, you know, they publish this stuff, you know, we read the right-wing press so you don't have to. This is from Town Hall, one of the websites. You know, when Google stopped spidering and giving you results from Alternet and Raw Story, the progressive websites, they continued doing it with Town Hall. So if you Googled these things, you know, Town Hall pops right up all the time. Not so much the left-wing sites. But anyhow, this is what Town Hall said. Quote, like a good woke American, Ms. Merkel charged that the royal family was bothered by the skin color of her son. When you don't have a legitimate grievance, you always play the race card. For Harry to allow his wife to make such a scandalous charge without naming names is cowardly. Yes, he's a coward because he didn't clamp down on the little lady. But it's also very telling, they write over at Town Hall. I suspect the missus was spewing fake news. Over at the conservative National Pulse, the writing reports that their headline is The Many Lies of Meghan and Harry. And the headline over at Newsbusters was Morning Network News shows spent 91 minutes fawning over Harry and Meghan. You know, these conservative freakouts about the first black member of the British royal family, though, I think are generally outliers across American public opinion. And it seems like Americans aren't the only ones who've lost patience with these self-absorbed, narcissistic, absurdly wealthy billionaire royal families. I mean, British television fired Piers Morgan yesterday. He walked off the set, but they said, okay, that's it, because of his attacks on Meghan Markle. You know, it was back in 1651 when Thomas Hobbes in his book Leviathan arguably kicked off the Enlightenment by saying that people could choose their own leaders. This was like the shot heard around the world. And then, you know, two generations later, John Locke, in two treatises on government, you know, talked about the rights, the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. Jefferson took that word, you know, took that phrase and replaced property with happiness. And while democracies across the world are under assault by international oligarchs and theocrats, I don't think anybody can argue anymore after 240 years that democracy is not a viable form of government, which is one of the reasons why when Donald Trump tried to overthrow our democracy, the rest of the world stood aghast. Oh, my God. And now, I mean, this is fascinating. This piece in now that's from the piece that I published over at HartmannReport.com. But there's a fascinating piece in the Washington Post by Antonio Farzan, talking about how the Australian Broadcasting Company is saying that, enough. Let's not as a corporation, but, the people on ABC are saying, enough. Let's get rid of the British royal family as the Australian. And this is in the Caribbean. In former British colonies in the Caribbean, they're growing increasingly queasy about their lingering ties to a nation that built its wealth through the slave trade. And that would, by the way, be the royal family. In September, Barbados announced plans to remove Queen Elizabeth as their head of state. Jamaican leaders have expressed interest in following suit, as have St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Now, Meghan had pointed out that she would go to these former British colonies where there's a lot of black people, and they loved her, and she thought this would help the royal family. But apparently they're not interested in that.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So I realize it's up to the Brits to decide if they want to continue their royal family as having an actual role in government or let them just be ornamental. But what do you think? And welcome back. Let's see here. Uli in Teaneck, New Jersey. Hey, Uli, what's on your mind today?
Moin Tom, wie geht's?
Mir geht es gut.
Das freut mich. Well, you were talking about the royal family. Well, there's not a whole lot I want to say about those parasites. But one thing, as long as the
So
British
you consider them parasites?
I'm sorry?
You consider them parasites?
Absolutely.
Because they consider themselves the upholders of British tradition.
Okay. And the British keep on singing God Save the Queen.
I know.
Anyway, the reason I'm calling is I just wanted to give you an update on vaccinations here in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Okay.
I got vaccinated on Sunday morning, and everything went smooth, very organized. I get a card that I got vaccinated with Pfizer, and the second shot is due on the 28th of March. So I'm very
one
happy.
of the things, Uli, that Louise learned this morning. Now, again, this is something she heard from a nurse, and so I can't say that this is absolute verified scientific fact. But what the nurse told her was that the first shot is a lower dose of vaccine than the second shot, and apparently that is to reduce the number of side effects from the first shot. And so that when you get the second shot, you already have some immunity, so your body doesn't freak out to the much larger dose. And so the first shot is kind of primes you, and the second shot is the one that really makes you immune. And so please be sure to get both.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going. But I've also heard from my dentist, she's in her 40s, and she said she was out for about 2 days with fever. She couldn't lift her arm. So I guess it affects everybody differently.
Yeah, that happened to my brother-in-law. He got knocked down for 2 days.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll see what happens.
It's better than dying. Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I said it's better than dying, but continue with your thought. I'm sorry. There's a slight delay here, so we keep stepping on each other. My apologies.
That's okay. Also, I have a little update about Germany. I've spoken to members of my family and also many friends, and they're saying that in Germany, they are tripping over their own bureaucracy, getting this going, because they're very careful with lawsuits and all sorts of complications. But anyway, he said, or some people said now, that apparently starting in the beginning of April or towards the middle of April, you'll be able to get your vaccine from your home or your general physician. So that's like, I think as soon as that gets going, they will move fast forward. So anyway, that's...
I think so. And everybody in Germany has a physician, and so by and large, and so it'll be a lot easier. It's got to be, well, you would think it would be easier in a country with a national health care system. Although, the Biden administration, when Louise was down here this morning in Portland at the convention center, she said the Army was there. They were helping out. I'm assuming that that's, the National Guard in Army uniform, the Army National Guard, but You know, Biden is helping, is making it happen. Uli, great to hear from you.
Okay.
Vielen Dank. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Cheers. Well, we'll be right back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. So people wonder, why militias all of a sudden? How is it that all kinds of Americans are showing up with assault weapons in the Capitol building trying to assassinate the Vice President of the United States and the Speaker of the House of Representatives and stop the counting of the presidential votes, the Electoral College votes? Where did this come from? You know, the last time we saw an armed uprising against the federal government in the United States was 1861. It was the Confederacy. Is this a Confederacy rising again? Well, yeah, there is a huge white supremacist element to it. In fact, I'd say it's one of the primary animating impulses. But what really got these things going, these militias going, was the Heller decision written by the opinion written by Anthony Scalia and published on June 26, 2008. And it has crazy language in it, basically begging for militias. I share it with you in a special video over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. And then it's past the hour. Just a quick note and apology to our affiliates. In the previous hour, we had about a 30-second or so freeze on basically our internal internet over at the studio. And I lost my connection. Everything just froze up and freaked out. And we're trying to track this down. It's we're doing this show. I'm at home, Nate's at home, Sean's in the studio, but it's jerry-rigged. And Louise got her shot this morning. I'm hoping to get mine in the next week or 2 or 3. I'm on the list. I'm actually older than her, but she got it first. Because it's kind of a lottery here in Oregon. And we're all looking forward to getting back in the studio and getting things stabilized. But my apologies. I know one of our radio stations called Sean and said, what's going on? And that's what happened. And the same thing happened last week for about 10 seconds. And we have not been able to figure out what is causing it. And we've got an engineer coming in this afternoon to double, triple, quadruple check it. But something funky is going on with the internet. And we're all using, kind of overusing the internet right now to produce this show. So a long way of saying my apologies. Back to the royal family. Canada is part of the British Commonwealth, I guess. And all 10 now there's nearly half of Canadians. Now this was back in February, before the Meghan and Harry kerfuffle, but nearly half of Canadians said that they should dump the Queen as the head of state. The challenge to that, it's sort of like amending the Constitution here, only it's even harder. We require all 10 provincial legislatures and the House of Commons and the Senate to sign off on it. New Zealand is getting skeptical. Now, Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister, told reporters, she said, I've said before that I've not sensed an appetite from New Zealanders for significant change, and I don't expect that's likely to change quickly. But, the press there is talking about it. I mentioned the Caribbean, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating. This is what Meghan said about her travels to parts of the British Empire where the majority of the population is black. And these are like St. Lucia, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, countries like this. She said that she often met girls and women who were touched to, quote, see someone who looks like them in this position for the first time. She said, I never could understand how it wouldn't be seen as an added benefit, that's to the royal family, and a reflection of the world today. Yeah, a black person in the British royal family, it's like, hey, we're entering the 21st century. But maybe not so much. Now the Queen has come out, and Meghan was careful to point out that it wasn't the Queen or her husband, Prince Philip, who's in the hospital right now, who were the ones questioning the color of the skin of her child. And so we're left with the implication that it was Prince Charles, Harry's father, but who knows? I mean, you know, it could have been somebody else. But the bottom line is, or the question, I suppose, is, isn't this institution an anachronism? I mean, it seems to me like the British monarchy and the royal trumps remind us all that really this idea of we the people being in charge of our government, this radical, it was literally a radical idea in 1776. Never been tried in human memory. I mean, well, yeah, the Greeks, 3,000 years earlier. And that lasted, what, 200-300 years? But I think that the world is getting tired of overdressed, cranky, billionaire families. And most of the rest of Europe that has royal families have relegated their royal families to simply being decorative. Yes, you can come out, you can have a little pomp and ceremony, you can, and they've kind of turned it into tourism. But in England, I mean, the Queen actually has the power to dissolve Parliament. She has the power to, I believe she has the power to strike down laws. I'm not sure if she has the power to pardon. That's the old kingly pardon. But, I mean, you know, there are some substantial powers, real political powers that go along with the Queen being the head of state in the United Kingdom. Now, the flip side of this is here in the United States, if you read the conservative media and you look at what's going on over on Fox News, it's almost like they're saying, well, we need a royal family here. And that's what I think they thought they had with Trump. And they were so, oh my God, look at that. And there's a prince and a princess, you know, look at that. Don Jr., he's going to make a great senator. And that Princess Ivanka, she's going to make a great, a great senator from up on 28 minutes past the hour. Today on the Thom Hartmann Book Club with Thom Hartmann University, we're reading from what is apparently Donald Trump's second favorite book. His number one, according to his first wife, as I recall, was the collected speeches of Adolf Hitler, which was on his bed next to his, or on his bedstand next to his bed for years. But when he was asked by reporters his favorite book, he said P.T. Barnum's The Art of Money Getting, or Golden Rules for Making Money. So I thought, hey, let's check this out. This is from the introduction. Those who really desire to attain an independence but have only to set their minds upon it and adopt the proper means as they do in regard to any other object which they wish to accomplish, and the thing is easily done. But however easy it may be found to make money, I have no doubt many of my hearers will agree it is the most difficult thing in the world to keep it. The road to wealth is, as Dr. Ben Franklin truly says, as plain as the road to the mill. It consists simply in expending less than we earn. That seems to be a very simple problem. Mr. Micawber, one of those happy creations of the genial TV Week.
Dickens,
and
puts the case in strong light when he says that to have an income of 20 pounds per annum and spend 20 pounds and 6 pence is to be the most miserable of men.
Which kind of matches
whereas to have an income of only 20 pounds and spend but 19 pounds and 6 pence.
You may have two if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list,
many of my readers may say, we understand this is economy and we know economy as well.
And at the very least, say, hey, sign me up for the mailing list for Free Speech TV. It's free. There's no charge. You don't get spammed. They don't sell your list. There's no ads. Very straightforward stuff. I got this email yesterday. Hi, Andrew from San Diego here. And, of course, this went out to all the supporters of Free Speech TV. He says, I have some big news to share with you. Over the past 4 years, we built a stronger progressive movement than ever before, which is so true. And he says, now we don't have a moment to waste. You know there are people all across America right now as you read this who are sick and can't get to the doctor. And folks walking down the street, driving or taking their children to the park who aren't safe in their own communities for no other reason than their skin color. It's critical we leverage our power to push a bold agenda for health care, racial equality, climate protection, and so much more right now, writes Andrew. We can do this by growing our base of Free Speech TV viewers and donors. And then he talks about independent watchdogs like Amy Goodman and me and Sonali and Randy Rhodes and David Packman and Stephanie, that we're all doing our job. And he says, here's the big news. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, I'm inviting you to join our community of change makers this week. He said, if you make your very first donation to Free Speech TV before Friday, you'll get something special in the mail. And if 300 people make their first donation by Friday, I'll invest an extra $5,000 in our viewer-powered network. Are you up for the challenge? 877-378-8669. Thank you, Andrew. Well said, and it is so important. This is my hobby horse, right? My favorite rant. And it's not just getting people who are existing viewers to call now and make a contribution if they've never done it before, which please do so. If you've never contributed to Free Speech TV before, if you've never become, kind of officially part of our family, please do so. Free Speech TV needs your help, even small amount. In fact, particularly small amounts, because Free Speech TV is primarily driven by lots and lots of small donations. But also, if we can get more people watching Free Speech TV, that's a larger, base of people who are potential donors. And we can get more done, or we can cut back on the time we do fundraising, or both. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help out this little engine that could, this extraordinary little television network. They're running with a staff of, I believe it's fewer than 20 people in Denver that keep this entire TV network together and running. You've got people there who are doing the work of 3 people. And it is just, it's such an honor to be associated with Free Speech TV. And the people that I work with, and the people, right across the board at Free Speech TV are just wonderful, wonderful people. And this is a network that is worth keeping on the air and is worth helping grow. So if you can make a commitment to yourself to try to get at least 1 new people watching this network sometime in the next month. Now, keep in mind, getting 1 new person addicted to Free Speech TV, or habituated, is probably going to mean you're going to have to do outreach to 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 or 20 people. And that's a little bit of work, but it doesn't cost you a penny. And speaking of pennies, of course, if you can also make a contribution, and in particular a monthly contribution, even a very small one, that is so useful. It's so valuable. With a $20 gift, you have your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, which is the wildflowers, the seed pack, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and Free Speech TV sunglasses. With or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class, is the subtitle, or words to that effect. With a $240 gift, you can participate in one of our Zoom meet and greets. They're private. That's just us. And whatever you want to talk about, we can cover it. Or you can get 2 books autographed by the author, by me. That's The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, the bumper sticker, both mine and the Free Speech TV one, the seed pack, the wildflower seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and my oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come visit us here in Portland. And we'll start doing that in all probability this fall. Louise just got her vaccination, got in line. She got it this morning. So it's like, I'm still waiting, but it's really cool. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Call now and become part of our family. We need you. Conspiracy theories that can do tremendous damage. And, one of those being one of the conspiracy theories that, brought two Republicans into Congress this year. So anyhow, I lay the whole thing out with a new video for our supporters over at ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Abortion, stimulus, conservatives, the royal family. Oh, there's a lot to talk about today. And Sean tells me we had a 10 or 20 second freeze again in the last block. Our Chase, our engineer, is going to be in this afternoon. We're going to be taking everything apart and putting it back together, trying to figure out what is causing this. But anyway, to your calls. Cassandra in White Plains, New York. Hey, Cassandra, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing? I'm an African-American woman, and just in my take on the Meghan Markle thing, I have some questions as to whether or not this is really a racist question about the skin color of the baby. I think people are conflating three different things. One is the extreme racism of the British tabloid press, with the collusion of certain racist courtiers. But we don't know what the opinions of the British royal family are. I mean, they certainly welcomed her at the wedding. And then the second one is the question of the skin color of the baby. We don't know. I mean, we only know that Prince Harry said a family member asked that. We don't know the spirit in which it was asked. Was it snarky and nasty and racist? Or was it just a genuine question, as you would ask about, what's the eye color going to look like? Does he have his mother's nose or father's nose?
Well, Cassandra, wasn't it in the context of whether he should have a title and a security detail?
Well, that's the third part of this, is Archie is not going to be a prince. And that, I'm wondering a little bit about conspiracy theory on that one, because there were rumors that Prince Harry's father is not Prince Charles, and that he's not in the line of succession, that his father is James Hewitt, Princess Diana's riding master. And so this might be a convenient way of not having to ever deal with that. I mean, the nuclear option would be genetic testing, because then the question is moot. But as far as the question of skin color, I have a colleague who's of European descent, who's married to an African-American guy, and she came to me very shyly and said, "Can I ask you a question? I don't know how to do black hair. If I have a girl, how am I going to do the hair? And I just told her, don't worry, your hair is straight, your husband's is curly, it'll probably be wavy, it won't be a problem. And even if it's kinky,
these things work out.
Detangling shampoo, don't worry about it." But the question of skin color, I found it a little bit creepy, as a richly pigmented African-American woman, that Meghan Markle would be offended. It was like, of course he'll be white. Look at me. Whereas, maybe the kid will be the same as her. I don't know. But I don't know the spirit in which that question was asked. And I think that's the most important thing. If it was asked in a nasty, racist way, then it's a nasty, racist question. But if it was genuine curiosity, I'd like to know.
I agree with you on all those points. I can't dispute any of them. And we certainly do need to know more. But I think the larger question is, and this goes to your point about, what if Harry's not actually Charles's son? That presupposes the legitimacy of a lineage that is purely based on DNA, which is based on the assumption. I mean, keep in mind, on British coins, there are 4 letters, not all their coins, but on some of their coins, there's 4 letters. One of them is R, which stands for Regina, which is Queen. There's another R in there, which is Rex. I forget what the letters are now, but what they stand for are 4 Latin words that mean she rules by the grace of God. That the official story of the British royal family, and of pretty much all royal families, that was developed back 500 years ago, is that God put them on the throne, not some warlord king who just, was more bloodthirsty than anybody else and willing to kill enough people to end up the head guy. And because God put them on the throne, there's something special about their DNA. And this is, I think, when people got offended when Donald Trump was talking about he's got great genes, and all this kind of stuff. And it calls into question this whole idea of the legitimacy of hereditary governance. And that's the larger issue that I'm trying to get a hold of.
I mean, it's just a story.
My point.
I'm reading Yuval Noah Harari's *Sapiens*. This is a story you tell people. and people believe it, and it's nonsense. I would not bow down to this other human being. I mean, it's just a human being as far as I'm concerned. I don't recognize the British royal family as anything other than fellow human beings. And so I think it's total nonsense. This whole cottage industry of courtiers and, hangers-on and critics and all this and people counting out the bloodlines and stuff, it's nonsense.
Well, I think there's a place for it, and if I could real quickly, I think there's a place for it, and that place is sort of like the little colonies up near Salem, Massachusetts, where you can visit one of these, replicas of late 1600s, late 17th century Massachusetts, where everybody's dressed up like pilgrims, right? Let them be a museum piece, let them be a tourism trap, but having them run the government. Really?
Yeah. Or, I agree that monarchy needs to be modernized. They need to turn over all their castles and their jewels as national treasures and open them up as museums. And they need to, if they really want to lead a life of service, do that as a life. They should get a modest income, from the government, but not riches beyond belief.
Well, they're billionaires.
Yes.
Let them do like Bill Gates, open a foundation and help people out. I mean, it's like they're billionaires, for God's sake. So, I've got all excellent points. Cassandra, thank you so much for the call. I've got to move along, but thank you. Steve in Cranbrook, British Columbia, Canada. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today? Steve? Sean, tell me I haven't frozen up again. No, Steve. Okay, great. Roseanne in Oroville, California. Hey, Roseanne, what's on your mind?
Well, I was watching a program just recently, within the last month, that was about the British royal family, and they said that somewhere way back when, one of the British royal family married somebody out of Africa who is black, and there's actually a portrait somewhere, but they're not allowed to talk about it. I don't know if you can find this anywhere.
Sean says it was Queen Charlotte.
It was. You know about her. Okay.
Yeah, black Portuguese. I don't know anything about it.
That whole royal family, listening to all this, sounds like a cult to me. They're not really running things. There's somebody else running things there. It's really weird.
Yeah, I'm with you. Roseanne, thank you very much for the call. Jacqueline in Calliston, New Jersey. You want to go back to the abortion topic from the previous hour, Jacqueline?
Actually, Clifton, New Jersey. Hi, Tom. I'm very nervous. It's a great honor. I listen to you every day when I can work from home. I am a second generation. And I was a first-time contributor to Free Speech Radio today because your generous listeners offer to give you that $5,000, depending on if you reach that number.
That goes to the network, not to me. But let's keep to the topic that we're talking about here on the air, Jacqueline. What's up?
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you for that. But I am also a host producer. I was for 7 years WBAI in New York City, where Amy Goodman came from. And I'm a second generation social justice advocate and Latina, although I am of olive skin, some light skin privilege, and I'm very interested in the Meghan Markle experience just because of that anti-racism lens and colorism and everything else that I work in. But in terms of the anti-abortion, I am a woman of faith, as are my parents. And I know, Tom, you used to, or I don't know if you still are, a pastor, so you'll know where I'm coming from. But I did want to just give some, insight and to please ask, because I felt a little bit this way when I was listening yesterday and a little bit today on
30
some of the conversations, that please, like, in terms of those of us like me who are staunch Democrats, progressives, who fight for marginalized and oppressed people, and have a rich history of that you honor us as well in terms of I am anti-abortion and I am also pro-life and also just anti-racist. So just please keep that perspective in mind, because it almost sounds like a little bashing. I'm also anti-vax, but I've always been that way. So we're on the same team. Let's talk about each other.
No, I get it, Jacqueline. And here's my take on this. If you are opposed to abortion, don't get one. And if you're opposed to vaccine, don't get one. I mean, and I respect your right not to get one. But if you're going to impose that law on my child who gets raped, I'm upset.
Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Holly in Marshall, Missouri. Hey, Holly, what's on your mind today?
Oh, the royal family. I have a friend who lives there, and I've visited many times in England, and I rarely saw anybody mixing with people of color. But speaking about the family itself, the Queen is one of the richest women in the world. And she wouldn't even pay for the part of the palace that burned down. The British taxpayers had to pay for it. They also own most of the private property in England. And it makes me sick to think that people don't think they're racist. Anyone who has seen the movie Gandhi or Lawrence of Arabia and seen the way that the British treated the people of color, they just don't understand history. They're notoriously, the whole history is racist. So,
well, the history may be. I mean, the history of America is very racist. That doesn't mean that you and I are racists. Although I'm sure that all of us have, the germ of that in us. But my point is that what the Queen is trying to say right now is, that was part of our past. That's not part of our present. You're not willing to cut them that slack.
Okay. And one last thing is that I'm pro-choice and anti-forced birth and a supporter of your wonderful program. You've helped me understand so many important issues, and thank you.
Well, thank you, Holly. Yeah, and I wasn't, I think, properly respectful to the last caller who is opposed to abortion, in as much as I didn't, I said, if you don't like abortion, don't get one. Well, I guess that's really my position.
Your response was excellent, really. It was very considerate. Thank you.
I just don't see, thank you. I just don't see where government should be in this, playing a role in this. I don't want the police between my wife and her doctor or any woman in my life. Bubba in Seattle. Hey, Bubba, what's up?
Hey, Tom, let me go straight to the point. When the president stimulus check they just passed, why is it that Joe Manchin fight to nail so that he can take out the $15 minimum wages there? And the Democratic Party, they campaign for the $15 minimum wage. They think that in the midterm, they're going to win back again. I'm serious. If they don't pass this $15 minimum wage, they're going to lose the Senate, possibly the House. And the one thing, I think the Progressive Caucus in the House, they should stand their ground and put that $15 minimum wage back there. So that's my question. I don't know.
They're going to.
That's my take.
The $15 minimum wage is coming back. It is absolutely coming back. It's just they couldn't get in that reconciliation bill because, it was a combination of things. I think the main thing was, because the Vice President Harris had the power to overrule the Senate parliamentarian.
Exactly.
But she didn't have the power to overrule 8 Democrats. There were 8 Democrats who voted against the $15 minimum wage.
So,
that's the problem.
What can they do? Are they going to primary those guys? Because right now it's better for them to get out from the Democratic Party.
I think more than a few of them might be facing primaries, Bubba. I really do. Bubba, thanks a lot for the call. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate you listening to us on, I believe it's KBCS. We'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour here on your media support group for We the People, the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. We'll be right back. The hidden history of the war on voting tells how the GOP has been stealing elections for decades and will again this year unless we stop them. Gretchen Reynolds over at the New York Times has been compiling for the last year or so, maybe a little longer, but I've been noticing it for the last year, some just remarkable statistics and information coming out of peer-reviewed scientific journals about the benefits of very, very small, short amounts of exercise on the quality of life and the lifespan, you know, the ability to survive disease of all of us. Frankly, some of the studies were on younger people. A lot of the studies were on people over 50. And I'm talking very small amounts of exercise, like literally 4 minutes of bicycling, or 4 seconds, excuse me, of bicycling really hard on a stationary bicycle, followed by 56 seconds of just relaxing. And doing that 15 times, you know, over a 15-minute period, a couple of times a week. 4 seconds of exercise produce measurable results. It's all over at thomhartmann.com. We got a new video up for the people who are supporters of our program. You can check it out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Ron in Roanoke, Virginia. Hey, Ron, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to respond to the lady that called in a few callers ago. She sounded sweet enough. You know, she sounded like somebody's adorable aunt or grandmother. But she was saying we don't know if it's racism because we don't hear it from the person's mouth who said it, or we didn't witness it, or whatever. Here's the point. That's gaslighting. No matter how sweet she sounded, that's gaslighting. We don't need to hear it from the person who said it so we could judge it for ourselves. We heard it from the mouths of the two victims of it. We heard Megan explain it. We heard Harry explain it. We saw their facial expressions when they explained it. We saw the pain on their faces when they explained it. And, they didn't pass it off as being a lighthearted comment or just people making, speculation. And this is a perfect example of why racism is perpetuated and why we can't get away from it, because whenever we say that there is racism or we're experiencing it, people try to gaslight us and tell us, no, it's not racism. And that's a problem. That's a very big problem in itself.
Ron, in defense of our earlier caller, who I thought she made some very good points. I agree. I'm not going to ask you if this has been your experience in your life, because I don't want to put you on the spot. But I'll tell you, in my life, there have been many times. I can remember 2 or 3 of them. Although I've been around for a long time, where I said things to people thinking that I was saying something that was kind of plain vanilla, whatever. It didn't have any, it wasn't going to hurt them. It didn't have any implications, whatever. And what they heard was something very hurtful. And they were wounded by what I said. And in at least one case that I remember quite well, I didn't learn until a full year later that I had wounded that person by saying something that I thought was completely innocent. And I wondered why that person basically disappeared from my life. And it was a comment that I had made that was completely misconstrued, or I said it so inartfully. And is that not, can't we, cut everybody some slack here and say, yeah, it's possible that a member of the royal family was asking about, how dark her son would be these discussions about lineage and race and all that kind of thing go way, way back, especially in England, which is where the slave trade to the United States originated, or the kidnapping of people for the slave trade. But is it not possible that maybe you're right and she's right?
It's totally
not that you're right about her
and
gaslighting, but that you're right that it was an innocent comment, and she's right that it was taken the wrong way, and both parties are entitled to their understanding of that dialogue?
It's completely possible, and it's also possible, like you said, that you can make a comment that you don't realize is hurtful to someone. But the point is, the victim didn't explain it that way. We had the both of them there at an interview, and they would have taken the time to say, yes, the comment was made, but the person who said it, we had a follow-up conversation. They didn't realize that it was actually hurtful at the time.
Well, that's the thing. I'm assuming that there wasn't a follow-up conversation.
They didn't explain it that way. The way that.
In fact, I'm guessing that follow-up conversation is. I'm guessing that follow-up conversation is going to be happening now.
I'm going to take it for face value. I'm going to take it for Harry and Meghan were hurt by the comment. They didn't take it as being something that was just impertinent. It wasn't meant to be hurtful. I'm going to take it for face value that they were hurt by it, and that's the way it was construed. So, yeah. But thank Thank you.
Okay, I got it. Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, Ron. Raphael in Olympia. Hey, Raphael, what's up?
Hello, Tom. Yes, that was my experience. I'm Puerto Rican, and I married a girl from the South, and the family was in shock that this girl from the South was marrying a Latin American. And the second shock was when they found out that we were pregnant, and the question was asked, I wonder what color the skin of the baby will be. And that hurt so much. It was a very racist comment. I am white. My family is from Spain. And so was my wife. So, but they were worried that because I was Puerto Rican, that they were worried about the skin of the baby.
And you think that their comment was made with the intent of hurting you, or just the casual racism like that is hurtful? I mean, microaggressions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but this went from one member to another member to another member, and when it came back to me, I was just shocked.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that Sunday night, I completely related to what was going on. It was so unnecessary.
Yeah, I get it. I again, this has not been part of my life experience. So I came from a racially homogenous family, so I don't understand it as well. But I think I'm beginning to. How hurtful that could be. Raphael, thank you for the call. Thank you, and thank you for sharing, a personal experience with us. That's got to be a challenge. That's got to be tough. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the program, and thanks for listening to SiriusXM. We'll be back in just a moment. I want to talk with Dr. Justin Frank, our friend who's a professor of psychiatry. We had a caller the other day who was concerned his son might be suicidal. How do we deal with this kind of stuff? Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
It is Grow Free Speech TV Week. And if we can add a couple of 300 new viewers, Andrew in San Diego is going to toss in $5,000, which kind of matches whatever donation you are giving. In fact, I got an email from him. You may have too if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list, you should call now, 877-378-8669. And at the very least, say, hey, sign me up for the mailing list for Free Speech TV. It's free. There's no charge. You don't get spammed. They don't sell your list. There's no ads. Very straightforward stuff. I got this email yesterday. Hi, Andrew from San Diego here. And of course, this went out to all the supporters of Free Speech TV. He says, I have some big news to share with you. Over the past 4 years, we built a stronger progressive movement than ever before, which is so true. And he says, now we don't have a moment to waste. You know there are people all across America right now, as you read this, who are sick and can't get to the doctor. And folks walking down the street, driving or taking their children to the park who aren't safe in their own communities for no other reason than their skin color. It's critical we leverage our power to push a bold agenda for healthcare, racial equality, climate protection, and so much more right now, writes Andrew. We can do this by growing our base of Free Speech TV viewers and donors. And then he talks about independent watchdogs like Amy Goodman and me and Sonali and Randy Rhodes and David Packman and Stephanie, that we're all doing our job. And he says, here's the big news. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, I'm inviting you to join our community of change makers this week. He said, if you make your very first donation to Free Speech TV before Friday, you'll get something special in the mail. And if 300 people make their first donation by Friday, I'll invest an extra $5,000 in our viewer-powered network. Are you up for the challenge? 877-378-8669. Thank you, Andrew. Well said, and it is so important. This is my hobby horse, right? My favorite rant. And it's not just getting people who are existing viewers to call now and make a contribution if they've never done it before, which please do so. If you've never contributed to Free Speech TV before, if you've never become, kind of officially part of our family, please do so. Free Speech TV needs your help, even small amount. In fact, particularly small amounts, because Free Speech TV is primarily driven by lots and lots of small donations. But also, if we can get more people watching Free Speech TV, that's a larger, base of people who are potential donors. And we can get more done, or we can cut back on the time we do fundraising, or both. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help out this little engine that could, this extraordinary little television network. They're running with a staff of, I believe it's fewer than 20 people in Denver that keep this entire TV network together and running. You've got people there who are doing the work of 3 people. And it is just, it's such an honor to be associated with Free Speech TV. And the people that I work with, and the people, right across the board at Free Speech TV are just wonderful, wonderful people. And this is a network that is worth keeping on the air and is worth helping grow. So if you can make a commitment to yourself to try to get at least 1 new people watching this network sometime in the next month. Now, keep in mind, getting 1 new person addicted to Free Speech TV, or habituated, is probably going to mean you're going to have to do outreach to 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 or 20 people. And that's a little bit of work, but it doesn't cost you a penny. And speaking of pennies, of course, if you can also make a contribution, and in particular a monthly contribution, even a very small one, that is so useful. It's so valuable. With a $20 gift, you have your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, which is the wildflowers, the seed pack, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and Free Speech TV sunglasses. With or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class, is the subtitle, or words to that effect. With a $240 gift, you can participate in one of our Zoom meet and greets. They're private. That's just us. And whatever you want to talk about, we can cover it. Or you can get 2 books autographed by the author, by me. That's The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, the bumper sticker, both mine and the Free Speech TV one, the seed pack, the wildflower seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and my oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come visit us here in Portland. And we'll start doing that in all probability this fall. Louise just got her vaccination, got in line. She got it this morning. So it's like, I'm still waiting, but it's really cool. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. Call now and become part of our family. We need you. Thank you so much.
This changes everything by Naomi Klein.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. We had a caller a couple days ago, I think it was Monday, expressing concern for his son, that, you know, he was going through a tough time as a result of the COVID and being home, and who knows? I mean, when you're talking about kids with the social, in this day and age of social media, if he was being bullied, things like that, and he was concerned that his son might even be suicidal, and was asking, what do I do with this? And I said, you know, I'm not qualified to answer that question. Dr. Justin A. Frank, MD, however, he's a psychoanalyst and a clinical professor at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science at George Washington University, the author of Trump on the Couch, including Obama on the Couch and Bush on the Couch, his former books. His Twitter handle, which is the best way to reach him and say hi, is Justin Frank, MD, which is spelled just the way it sounds. And Dr. Frank, welcome back. How best, in your opinion, what should parents be looking for, and how best to deal with children who seem to be in distress, particularly this kind of the suicidal variety or the depressive variety of distress as a consequence of the circumstances of the day?
Well, most parents, hi Tom, most parents know that the best way to talk to children is to try to listen to them first and see where they're at and what's bothering them and what they're thinking about. Then one wants to move further ahead and think about whether they have actual thoughts about hurting themselves, how they feel, what they like about themselves, what they think about the future, what they think about COVID. Are they looking forward to getting back to school? I mean, see if they're really interested in life and in the vital parts of life, and also a sense of their creative self, their self-esteem, as opposed to the problem of having a negative self or having a part of you that doesn't like you. And I think both parts exist in all of us to some extent, and certainly in kids. It's important to be able to pay attention to those things clearly and try to listen to them and see if they've had any thoughts or fantasies or feelings about it. I mean, it goes further than that if you want to see a professional, but go ahead with what your thoughts are.
Well, how do you open that conversation? I mean, having raised 3 kids myself, I'm real familiar with how are you feeling? Fine.
Right. Where did you go out? What did you do? Nothing.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
So the way to open it is to say what you've been noticing without necessarily asking a direct question. You know, I notice you've been keeping to your room a lot lately. Could we talk about it, or what's going on? Or, you know, it's like being open to be listening rather than saying, how are you, or how are you feeling? Because those are direct questions that can be completely denied or ignored or dismissed by most kids, or many kids, like you said. I've also raised 3 children, and they get depressed sometimes, and I've dealt with their sadness and their depression by trying to listen to them, and when they bring it up or when it comes out. It's hard to open the conversation, but a lot of times, I mean, I was just referred a family recently where the oldest son committed suicide, and to help them deal with the aftermath of that. And And it's terrible because they knew something was wrong and they didn't know how to approach him. And he kept denying that he was suicidal. And this is a very loving, concerned family, and it's horrible. And I think the best way to do it is to try to psychologically approach the child with a very loving parental love, and not just saying, "What did you do? What are you thinking?" But like, what's going on? Or you feel like, or sitting next to them. I sometimes, when they're younger, I actually go and hang out with them in their room, and if they let me in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's important to just be able to listen to what's bothering them. And there are lots of things, mainly with school and friends and isolation.
Yeah, there are two things that you said that triggered questions in my mind. The first was about depression and sadness. Is it not important to tell kids that sometimes being depressed and sometimes being sad is an entirely appropriate response to circumstances out of your control that you don't like, and we just have to figure out ways to work through that?
Yes. In fact, I think that's very important. It's also important to tell the parents that so they don't panic about having a sad child. And because of the interview that happened the other day with Meghan on the Oprah show, it's brought up the issue of suicide a lot. And I think that it's very scary to parents if they have a sad child. No, sadness is part of life. And it's not the same thing as suicide. And sadness is a feeling that one can get over, just like one is not happy all the time. One's not going to be sad all the time. I think it's very good what you said. It's not depression. Sadness and depression are not the same thing.
And then the second point that you raised was, the sense of the future. I remember a couple of decades ago when I was very into studying and writing about, kind of psychology in general, all those books I wrote on ADD. And I read a study that found that among people who were suicidal, genuinely suicidal, and particularly among people who ultimately committed suicide, one of the most common characteristics was that they could not imagine their own future. They couldn't look into the future and see themselves a year or 2 years, 3 years from now in a way that had enough detail that indicated that they were actually visualizing it. Can you speak to that? And how do you deal with that?
Well, one of the things you raised, you asked that when you were doing your research, it was on ADD. And people who have attention deficit disorder have a much harder time imagining the future than people who don't. So people who do have that problem, really it's much harder for them to conceptualize what they're going to look like, what they're going to feel, where they're going to be in a year or two, and how they're going to do. They don't have that kind of imagination for some reason. It's just the way they're wired, really. It's not, it's just the way it is. Whereas other people who are more obsessional or more, in schoolwork, they get an assignment, they do the homework right away, they take care of things right away, they have a sense of the future, they have a sense of their grade and what the teacher's going to say, they have a sense of all these things. Whereas a person with ADD usually procrastinates to the last minute and doesn't really have a clear sense of even time or how long something will take. But a sense of the future is very important. And one of the things that's clear about what Meghan Markle said, I think that tapped into a lot of concerns that parents have, is that there was a sense of hopelessness, that there was no future for her, that she was completely lost. She was an outcast in this huge new social network that she had married into, and that she had nobody to go to or to talk to, and she didn't know what to do. And there's a sense of hopelessness that is one of the building blocks, the sad, tragic building blocks to the suicidal person, where they really feel hopeless about the future. They feel trapped. They feel no way out. And the suicide is basically a wish to relieve themselves of just awful pain, whether it's emotional. I mean, it's easier to talk about physical pain and suicide. Too big to have chronic. So can we help?
We just have 15 seconds. Can we help people construct a future for themselves?
Yes, you can help them construct a future by both allying yourself with them and saying that in a way, when I was your age, I didn't have a sense of the future, and these are some of the things I thought about, and let's try to read a book or talk about something in the future and share some thoughts and feelings.
Right. And here's what we can do, and here's what great stuff.
Here's
Dr.
what
Frank,
we can
I
do,
so
man.
appreciate you dropping by today. Thank you so much, Dr. Justin Frank.
Thank you. Okay.
Always great talking with you. And I always learn something from Dr. Frank. It's remarkable.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can reach Dr. Frank on Twitter at JustinFrankMD. We'll be back. And welcome back. Let's see here. David in Los Angeles. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Well, I appreciate the discussion you had with the doctor here, and I understand the importance of that, but that's not what I'm calling in for today.
That's
what
fine.
I'm calling in for today is to deal with this, you can set your watch by it type of mantra that always comes into play when Democrats come into office, where the Republicans break out the debt clock. And this mantra, it's a mantra about overspending, whoop-de-whoop. Now, I was listening to C-SPAN the other day, and they had another startup lobbyist organization, Open Books or something like that. And the guy said something really interesting that really tugged me in his honesty of the statement that he made. And what he said was that public spending crowds out access to public spending, right? Now, meaning as a lobbyist and or one of these think tanks, and he said there are thousands of them in Washington, right? Now, I can assure you that we don't, the regular people, don't employ all of these thousands of lobbyists, right, and think tanks to come up with these mantras and repetitious language to which all of them be reading off the same page. Check it out, right? And so what's fascinating with this is that the amnesia of the American people, because like I said, you can set your watch by it. Every time they come, they get out of office, and I might add, screw up the economy, right? And we got to come in and do cleanup, right? They don't help with the cleanup, but they are like just, like I said, like a mantra. And this mantra is something that is think tanks, we're not financing them, and lobbyists, we're not financing them. So who is it that's financing them? But big business, right? And so when he made that comment about public spending crowds out private, and he went so far to say that we can judge our economy by how well Wall Street is doing. And we know that's a lie, right?
Yeah, just look at the last year.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, as a party, the Democratic Party, the so-called progressive wing of it, I know that they have to know this history. They have to know that this is standard operating procedures from their, I wouldn't call them their counterpart now because they're so far right, that, I mean, you need binoculars to see these people, right? I mean, they're just like out there. But point being, check out the mantra. That's going to come fast and furious as we go forward with trying to revive this economy.
I'm with you, David. I call it the two Santa Claus theory, and that's what Jude Wanniski laid out in the 1970s, is that when Republicans are in power, they should run up the deficit as bad and as fast as they can, and then when Democrats come into power, scream about the deficit. David, thank you. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So remember back in 2020 when in California, Uber and Lyft were pouring all kinds of money into Prop 22, which basically would allow them to continue claiming that their drivers weren't actually employers of Uber. They were actually contract workers. They were all independent small businesses. And therefore, the company didn't have to pay for unemployment insurance, didn't have to pay for workman's compensation if somebody got injured, didn't have to offer them any health insurance. In fact, basically couldn't even do it. And there's a whole bunch of other benefits that are associated and protections that you actually get, state and federal protections that you get as an employee that you do not have available to you as a contractor. Well, it passed because of millions of dollars from Uber, and now the fallout is happening. Companies across California are starting to fire their workers and telling them, we'll hire you back. I give examples in our new video over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Boy, we've got a lot on the table. We've been talking about abortion, about the budget bill, about conservatives, about the royal family, about racism, about it's just. And I see we've got calls all over the map on these topics. Diana in Preston, Idaho. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Oh, I like Dr. Franks, but anyway.
I do too.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get your input on what's been going through my mind about abortion, because I know you've studied the Bible. I'm thinking that abortion is a compassionate thing to do, and forcing a woman or a girl to have a baby is a cruel thing to do. I mean, doesn't it say in the Bible we're not the body, that we are not the flesh, that we're immortal spirits, we're eternal, we're never born, we never die. You cannot destroy the spirit. And if that's what we really are, why are they so attached to the physical body? It says, doesn't it say in the scriptures that we're not supposed to be attached to the physical body?
Well, yeah, you could interpret parts of in particular Jesus' teachings like that, but there are places in the Bible where God causes abortions. There are places in the Bible where some of the older Old Testament prophets and others have prayed for abortions to happen to their enemies, that their enemies' children will abort. There is a place, I believe it's in Deuteronomy, where if a man strikes a woman in a way that causes an abortion, he has to pay a certain number of shekels or whatever it is to her husband. So, I mean, this is, and there's this whole concept of quickening. When does it go from being an impregnation to being a baby? And that in most of history was when the mother could feel the fetus moving, when it's actually, and of course in science, we've identified this, or at least with the Roe v. Wade, and then, the subsequent decisions have defined it as viability, which is a completely different threshold. But, I think your point is well taken. What we're hearing is, I mean, it was right up until the 18th century. The Catholic Church was not all in on being opposed to abortion because it wasn't considered abortion unless, the child was removed after quickening. In other words, after the mother could feel it move. So, or maybe it was the 17th century, but it's a fairly recent thing. And so, these modern day theocrats are they're very troubling to me. Diana, thank you for the call. Brian in Anaheim, California. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Greetings, my friend, patriot, and lover of democracy. I have a psychological theory regarding the royal family that I'd love to get your opinion on. I would argue that not only is it absolutely essential to keep royalty and political power separate, but that Britain has actually done a far better job of that than we have. I think it's because we in America don't have royalty per se, that we assign royal status to celebrities, which allows people with no political experience, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, to become governor of California and Donald Trump to become president of the United States. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on as a psychotherapist, is there a fundamental need to acknowledge royalty in one's culture, and can having royalty that is actually royalty allow for, to avoid this extreme danger of electing these non-politician celebrities?
I think it's cultural, not genetic. If you look at Aboriginal and Indigenous people, by and large, royalty is the aberration, the exception. Royalty seems to have come along with, and Daniel Quinn writes about this brilliantly in his book Ishmael, royalty seems to have come along with the agricultural revolution, when people settled down and started growing crops that were seasonal, and after the harvest, somebody locked the food up and then said to everybody else, you want some food, you got to do what I say. And thus kings and kingdoms were born, whether it was the Aztecs or whether it was the British royal family. And although, we're talking about 7,000 years ago, probably the Sumerians would be a better example, Gilgamesh. So I don't think that it's a human thing, but I do think it's very much a cultural thing, and one that I think we're shedding, in fairly short order. At least I hope we are.
I would also argue, you kind of touched on. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, the one other point that I want to make real quickly, Brian, is that many governments separate head of state, which is largely ceremonial, from head of government, which is functional. In the UK, the head of government is the prime minister. The head of state is the queen. In Israel, the head of government is the prime minister. The head of state is the president. The president does the ribbon cuttings. The prime minister presides over the Knesset, the parliament. Or whatever. I'm not that conversant, and we don't have that separation here, which is really what I think gets to your original point, which is the structural weirdness of American democracy, that we have essentially made our president kind of the head of state and the head of government, and those roles get confused a lot, and that causes us to think that somebody who would be a good head of state, that good pompous person that you want to be the face of the country.
Exactly.
Not necessarily the best person to actually run the country. I think Donald Trump is a great case in point. Brian, thank you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 27 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. It is Grow Free Speech TV Week. And if we can add a couple of 300 new viewers, Andrew in San Diego is going to toss in $5,000, which kind of matches whatever donation you are giving. In fact, I got an email from him. You may have too if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list, you should call now, 877-378-8669. And at the very least say, hey, sign me up for the mailing list for Free Speech TV. It's free, there's no charge, you don't get spammed, they don't sell your list, there's no ads. Very straightforward stuff. I got this email yesterday. Hi, Andrew from San Diego here. And of course, this went out to all the supporters of Free Speech TV. He says, I have some big news to share with you. Over the past 4 years, we built a stronger progressive movement than ever before, which is so true. And he says, now we don't have a moment to waste. There are people all across America right now, as you read this, who are sick and can't get to the doctor. And folks walking down the street, driving or taking their children to the park who aren't safe in their own communities for no other reason than their skin color. It's critical we leverage our power to push a bold agenda for healthcare, racial equality, climate protection, and so much more right now, writes Andrew. We can do this by growing our base of Free Speech TV viewers and donors. And then he talks about independent watchdogs like Amy Goodman and me and Sonali and Randy Rhodes and David Packman and Stephanie, that we're all doing our job. And he says, here's the big news. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, I'm inviting you to join our community of change makers this week. He said, if you make your very first donation to Free Speech TV before Friday, you'll get something special in the mail. And if 300 people make their first donation by Friday, I'll invest an extra $5,000 in our viewer-powered network. Are you up for the challenge? 877-378-8669. Thank you, Andrew. Well said, and it is so important. This is my hobby horse, right? My favorite rant. And it's not just getting people who are existing viewers to call now and make a contribution if they've never done it before, which please do so. If you've never contributed to Free Speech TV before, if you've never become, kind of officially part of our family, please do so. Free Speech TV needs your help, even small amount. In fact, particularly small amounts, because Free Speech TV is primarily driven by lots and lots of small donations. But also, if we can get more people watching Free Speech TV, that's a larger, base of people who are potential donors. And we can get more done, or we can cut back on the time we do fundraising, or both. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help out this little engine that could, this extraordinary little television network. They're running with a staff of, I believe it's fewer than 20 people in Denver that keep this entire TV network together and running. You've got people there who are doing the work of 3 people. And it is just, it's such an honor to be associated with Free Speech TV. And the people that I work with, and the people, right across the board at Free Speech TV are just wonderful, wonderful people. And this is a network that is worth keeping on the air and is worth helping grow. So if you can make a commitment to yourself to try to get at least 1 new people watching this network sometime in the next month. Now, keep in mind, getting 1 new person addicted to Free Speech TV, or habituated, is probably going to mean you're going to have to do outreach to 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 or 20 people. And that's a little bit of work, but it doesn't cost you a penny. And speaking of pennies, of course, if you can also make a contribution, and in particular a monthly contribution, even a very small one, that is so useful. It's so valuable. With a $20 gift, you have your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, which is the wildflowers, the seed pack, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and Free Speech TV sunglasses. With or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class, is the subtitle, or words to that effect. With a $240 gift, you can participate in one of our Zoom meet and greets. They're private. That's just us. And whatever you want to talk about, we can cover it. Or you can get 2 books autographed by the author, by me. That's The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, the bumper sticker, both mine and the Free Speech TV one, the seed pack, the wildflower seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and my oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come visit us here in Portland. And we'll start doing that in all probability this fall. Louise just got her vaccination, got in line. She got it this morning. So it's like, I'm still waiting, but it's really cool. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. Call now and become part of our family. We need you. Thank you so much.
The Hidden History of Monopoly tells how Robert Bork, that guy from the Reagan era, transformed corporate America and destroyed the American dream. There's so much news coming out of the Trump administration, so much corruption, so many crimes. Now they're letting people kill endangered species. Now they're selling off, the Arctic National Wildlife Preserve refuge to big oil companies. Now they're they're authorizing pesticides that we know cause birth defects and damage to children. It's just step after step after step that it's so easy to forget that back in July of 2020, it was reported that Jared Kushner and Mike Pence's nephew, John Pence, created a couple of LLCs, American-Made Media Consultants Corporation, that took $617 million
of Trump campaign cash, and nobody knows where it went. I'm telling you, these guys are professional grifters. We need to keep an eye on it. There's a whole rant about it over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program. And welcome back. With you, Judy in Sacramento, California. Hey, Judy, thank you for calling. What is on your mind today?
Well, I just really wanted to share something with the folks.
Judy, you were on the air.
Those that are against abortions. I was a victim of a rape when I was very young. Mm-hmm. I had no alternatives, so I ended up pregnant and giving birth to a child that, hate to say this, I actually hated. I sat for 9 months hating my life, trying desperately to figure out what was I going to do. When this happened, I was being groomed for a very important job. I lost all of that. I actually lost my life. Every day, I remember and have to go through this, and I hear this stuff on the radio, and it just brings it up again, over and over and over. There's nothing we can do right now for me, but we can for others. Women do not deserve to have that kind of hell for 9 months and the rest of their life. So anybody that thinks abortion is wrong, I'd just love to talk to them personally. But I'll tell you what, they'll never get to see me because I'm in hiding. I have put myself in a position that for the rest of my life, I felt COVID was like a blessing for me because I can stay away from people and they can stay away from me. Thank you, Tom. That's all I needed to say. Thank you for being there. Good day.
Thank you, Judy. I'm so sorry to hear that story, but it's so heartfelt. And it speaks to why, I mean, the cruelty, essentially, of this legislator from Texas who doesn't even have an exception for rape or incest in his women who get abortions must receive the death penalty bill that has now 40 supporters in the Texas legislature. It's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Ernest in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Ernest, what's on your mind? Ernest, you were on here.
Speaking about the monarchy, I think it's absurd that we're still talking about the monarchy when those people went around the world colonizing half of the world and setting their cultures back forever. And here we are, we're treating them with kid gloves. Mm-hmm. And I read a book about Australia.
Go ahead.
How Australia was formed, mm-hmm. And it was incredible what they did to those people. It started out, they had a famine, and they would put people in jail for stealing bread, and they kept people drunk. And when they put them in jail, the jails filled up so soon that they had to put them in boats and the harbors of England, and those people died because of the disease that created. And then they took them down to Australia, and they put them in big corrals, and they kept them in open places where they had to fend for themselves. And here we are in present-day United States talking about the monarchy. Give me a break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm with you. I consider me monarchy skeptical too. Ernest, thank you for the call. Elaine in Gilroy, California. Hey, Elaine, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. My question is about some of the things you said about the monarchy. Yes, I can see you smiling. That's good. Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, the Queen really does not have any power. She's a constitutional monarch. Parliament runs the country. You said something about the Queen can dissolve Parliament. No, she doesn't. When there's an election upcoming, the Prime Minister goes to the Queen and says, will you dissolve Parliament. And she don't get a choice. She says, yeah, because he's the Prime Minister and he's elected. And so they have an election and a new government comes in, or the old one, and she opens it again, right? So she can't.
But why insert her in that process? They don't do that in Israel when they dissolve the Parliament.
She has no choice. She doesn't even write her own speeches. It's a constitutional monarchy. Britain it's a modern democracy. We have an elected parliament and the Queen's the head of state. It works. It's not brilliant, it's not perfect, but it does work. And as far as racism's concerned, oh dear, what can I say? I was growing up in England in the 50s and the 60s, which gives you some idea how old I am. And I remember seeing and hearing Martin Luther King and the race riots for, when people were peacefully marching for equal rights for colored people. And I remember saying, my God, is that America? I always thought America was, state of the art, land of the free, all that kind of thing. Dial yourself forward to 2021, it's still happening. These people, these Black Lives Matter people that are going out peacefully demonstrating, they're met with people wielding weapons, shouting racial epithets at them, and even killing them. So I really kind of think that America might have to put its own house in order a little bit with racism. And as far as Meghan's concerned and Harry, I think there are a couple of holes in their story. Like they say, she said, well, I was suicidal and I wasn't helped. Well, neither was Diana, and she's as white as the driven snow, so that wasn't racist. And Diana eventually did get some help. I'm not sure where from. And so did Harry, when after his tragedy of his mother's death, he suffered from mental illness. He got help. Why did Meghan not get help? Were they waiting for the taxpayer check? I mean, they're both rich. They can afford to go out and get a psychiatrist themselves. I don't understand. I think there's holes in that somewhere. If your wife...
I get that.
If your wife was considering suicide, and what would you do? Would you go out and find a way of getting the help, or would you wait for Medicare to send you a check?
No, I would do the best I could. But I'm assuming that Harry, within the constraints of...
I don't want to think it, but I think Meghan is... I think she's milking the race card. And I think Oprah gave her...
Well, that's what they're saying over on Fox News.
Pardon?
It's impossible to know what is in someone else's heart and how somebody else's life is conducted. But the one thing I get about British royalty is, and I may be wrong on this, but my understanding was that the Queen has some powers that by tradition she doesn't use. But for example, dissolving Parliament.
Only over the church.
And that's actually designed to be kind of a flywheel in case the democracy goes a little too crazy. As if Boris Johnson was more like Donald Trump, then you might actually want the Queen to have the power to stop him.
Maybe so. I don't know enough about that.
You can make an argument for that. Yeah, I think it's possible to make an argument for that, and that a particular family that has had consistency for generations and views the country as their family business, and has this kind of altruistic notion of what's the Latin phrase for the obligation of service. Noblesse oblige.
Noblesse oblige.
That literally came out of the idea of royalty. That as a member of royalty, you have an obligation to your country first. And I think that Queen Elizabeth has, in large part, held to that throughout much of her life. But that has not been true of every royal in the United Kingdom. It's probably not true of every royal now. But I'm talking about every person who has occupied the throne.
Well,
So
also, Prince Charles is said he's going to slim it down, which it needs doing.
yeah.
So we'll see how that
we'll see
works
how it all
out.
shakes out. Elaine, thank you. Thanks for the discussion. It's fascinating to hear your perspective and you know, somebody who has been there and cares about it, clearly. I appreciate your call, and thank you for watching the program. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be wrapping up the show with your calls over the next 15 minutes. Just stick around. And welcome back. Randy in Gardnerville, Nevada. Hey, Randy, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I believe that previous caller was a bit of an apologist, although I completely agree with most of what she said. Royalty is, in fact, an anachronism. The Queen has extensive powers, like you say, some very critical. And there's too many really to enumerate. But, you know, it's rare that she ever exercises these powers. The last time I could see, Tom, was 1999, when Parliament wanted to have power to declare war on Iran without the Queen's permission. She refused. The issue was dropped. And if I could say so as an aside, speaking of anachronisms, that describes our system. We could be operating like the Europeans with a coalition and proportional representation and pluralism, but we don't. We have this archaic bicameral, meaning two houses, not two parties. I don't know, Tom, do you agree with me that we need to modify our system and go for a multi-party system?
I'm all in favor of that, Randy. The only way to do that would be to amend the Constitution or to go to instant runoff voting. Australia and New Zealand have the same problem we have, which is first past the post, winner take all elections. And as a consequence, they used to have two-party systems. They fixed that by going to instant runoff voting. I think that, you know, and we've got over 300 communities in the United States. The largest is the city of San Francisco, who have done that now. And that has been one of the big things that the Green Party has, you know, one of their major contributions to American democracy. And I think, you know, and of course the Democrats and Republicans hate it because it diminishes their power. But I totally get what you're saying, and I can't disagree with any of it. Randy, thank you for the call. Teresa in Washington, D.C. Teresa, you are on the air. Teresa is apparently listening to her radio rather than her telephone. John in Oak Park, Illinois. Let's try John. What's on your mind, John?
Hi. Earlier, I heard mention of the anti-abortion legislation, which is determined at the moment of conception.
Correct.
The assumption being responsibility falls upon the woman. Actually, two individuals are involved and should fall under this law. Fines, jail time, whatever penalties. And if this is the intention, which, yes, if this is the intention, and I assume they really want to ban everything that isn't whatever, in this context, and if this is brought forward, that both individuals are involved in any decision or any legislation, would this be received in the same context? I mean, would everybody...
Well, what if one of the individuals, per Judy's call a minute ago, is a rapist?
Well, or just, you know, whatever the college get-together, the hookup.
Right.
If the guy just disappears off the map and is not held responsible, he should be brought into it, and then also the parents realizing that, hey, listen, my son who's going all over town, he may face the death penalty. Yeah. I don't really like this.
See, I just think the state has no business in this. I think that this is a medical, we're talking a medical situation, and it should be dealt with by physicians and informed, fully informed individuals, patients, people, the women specifically. But that's just me. We'll be right back. Hey, my new book is out.
And take that land, that he did it because Erdogan threatened him. And then Erdogan comes to the United States, a week or two later and gets a whole state dinner thing. Check it all out. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. I think you'll find it fascinating. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I noticed we just had another one of those dropouts. We have an engineer coming in this afternoon. We are going to figure out what the hell is going on here. My apologies again for the dead air to our radio stations. Tamara or Tamara, Tamara, I'm assuming, in Joplin, Missouri. You are on the air.
Hey, Tom. Nothing makes me see red and makes me madder than when we Democrats allow them to bring the Bible into a woman's right to choose. Our Constitution guarantees freedom from religion. And when they bring religion and their Bible and their God into my life, they're violating my rights. Forced pregnancy is a form of slavery, using your religion to enslave a woman to have a baby. I saw a meme today, and it basically said, I went with my boyfriend today to get his vasectomy, and there was no one outside the clinic screaming that he was killing his children.
Right. Yeah.
And we Democrats need to not allow ever the Bible to be brought into a woman's rights to choose. Never, ever, ever.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tamara. Thank you very much for the call. Charlotte in Tucson, Arizona. Hey, Charlotte. What's up?
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
I had an abortion in my 20s. It was my decision. It was my human right. Nobody has the right to tell me what to do with my body because it was given to me by God. That's the only religion you can bring into this. This is my body. I don't put my hands on men's members, and they keep their hands off of mine. And that's the way it is. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, Charlotte. And I think you're one of about 25% of all women in America who have had an abortion, number one. And number two, there's an old joke that, if men could get pregnant, abortion would become a sacrament. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Charlotte, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. Thank you so much. Jesus in McAllen, Texas. Hey, Jesus, what's up?
Hey, greetings from the Rio Grande Valley. I donated last week.
No need to talk about that on the air, Jesus. I appreciate it, but that's for the Free Speech TV network. So, but what's up? What did you want to talk about?
You are the smartest man on TV or radio, and I trust your opinion. I'm calling really because sometimes I feel we're in an episode of Game of Thrones. We're discussing many topics, but the one topic that worries me, for the sake of myself and my children, is global warming. It's a one topic that affects all of us. I keep, I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. I have relatives in Mexico, and I kind of keep track of what's going on in Mexico. There's a terrible, terrible drought going on right now in Mexico. Even here in the Rio Grande Valley, we had a hurricane, and we're undergoing a terrible drought. And these people coming from Guatemala, from Honduras, they're coming here not because they want to, but because they're doing it out of necessity. I hear reports of people from Venezuela and Colombia going over into Chile because they're going through terrible droughts.
Yeah, we're seeing climate refugees.
Yeah, Greta Thunberg.
And there's going to be more. And we're going to start having climate refugees here in the United States. Hey, Sus, I've got to move along, but thank you for the call and thanks for your points. I do appreciate it. Pat in Washington, D.C. Hey, Pat, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
We had great conversations today. But listen, I just wanted to just piggyback on the lady the Brit that called in and all haughty about Americans expressing, calling out racism where they see it. Now, and I understand what you said in terms of you have made, benign comments that you didn't think were racist and people accepted them a different way. That's all well and good, but it is for the person who the comment was made toward to tell us what that felt like and how they interpreted that conversation. They were privy to it, not anybody else. And furthermore, the young lady also said that she stressed the point that not only was it the family, but it was an institution, and so she was not allowed to seek help. So her that point about getting Medicare and waiting for somebody to get me help
I know.
BS.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you, Pat. Pat, I got to run. I'm sorry, but thank you. Your eloquence shines through. I appreciate it. It's the end of the hour. It's the end of the day. Thanks so much for being with us. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, and hopefully with a newly invigorated whatever is going on with our Wi-Fi system or our internet system here. In the meantime, get out there, get active, tag you're it. Democracy doesn't exist without you. So be a part of it, huh? We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Health. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.